by any means necessary. We want justice by any means necessary.
What we have to do is see the complexity of this problem and the vastness of it. And then we will realize that we are going to have to forget some of these so-called organizational principles and organizational aims and objectives, and realize that the real principle, the real aim, and the real objective is a solution to the problem.
A police state. Just make the Negro neighborhood a police state.
Now we have two psychological battles that we're fighting against white folks. We won one. They told us that we should hate Malcolm X. We dumped that, thank God. Now the second battle that we're now fighting is whether or not we will have the right to use the terms to decide how our movement is going to go. They don't want us to use black power. I got news for them. Because what black power was supposed to do was to start bringing black people together under a slogan that everyone understood. But what in fact is done is it's organized white people and their Negro allies. Right? We have to stop saying that we are apathetic, because I'm going to define that word for you. Apathy means that you won't work on a program that I tell you will help you. Because, baby, when college students leave a good job and go to Mississippi to organize their people, that ain't hardly apathy. And when people get together in Watt and in Chicago and organize a rebellion, that ain't hardly apathy. That's what we ought to talk. And you have to watch the way it operates inside this country. Because what they say to us is that we are for you, but don't forget you're 10% of the population. And if you get smart, we'll wipe you out.
When you say nation, you talk about land. Our land is Africa. That's undeniable. This land is not our land.
That what Frantz Fanon's theory, psychological theory, is that we're in a post-colonial psychology. And what he calls that is an auto-destructional stage, which is the oppressor will oppress for so long that the oppressed no longer have to be physically oppressed. They do it to themselves automatically.
I'm black. Do you hear me, man? Do you understand? I am black. I'm a nigga. You understand me? I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
Hey man, it's like this, man. It's like, you know, it's like it's revolution time, man. There's no questions asked. Revolution is here. You know what I'm saying? We the youth, we the young. It's time for us to break loose, you know? We don't have no freedom, no rights, man. We slaves right now. Everybody's still a slave. That's what they told us today. In other words, you still a slave. No matter how much money you got, you still ain't shit. So, you know, it's on, just like that. Just like that.
Are really ready and willing to pay the price that is necessary for freedom. Our people will always be walking around here second-class citizens, or what you call 20th century slaves. What price are you talking about, sir? The price of freedom is death.
What's the figure? I mean, what are you in this for? You want power, you want revenge, you know? What is it? It's simple, Willie. I just want to be free.
The white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings. The white power structure, to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity, uses tricks. 100 years ago they could do it with chains. Today they use tricks. And one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration, to give the get Negro, so-called Negro leaders to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is as soon as the spirit of rebellion or revolution began to spread among the masses of black people in this country, and they began to take an active part, and they showed that they weren't confined to this nonviolent approach, then the government or the power structure began to sit up and take notice and
With our struggle since the 60s, you will see nothing but betrayals by the petty bourgeois elements in our society. The African bourgeoisie is the most corrupt bourgeoisie in the world. In Africa, they seek luxury in the midst of mass suffering. There are more Mercedes in Africa than in any other continent in the world. In America, as soon as they arrive at a position based on this blood of the people, they snatch that position and run away from the people. But you must not think that they represent the people. They only represent their opportunistic self, using the people every step of the way. So you must not be confused. It must be clear then, for the 60s, the class struggle in the African Revolution must be more ruthless and uncompromising than in any other revolution. Here then the masses must come without pity and without mercy to trample upon these reactionary pigs who, after the people have gained struggle through their blood, come to hand back the gains on a silver platter to the very enemy the people fought. This will come as a natural consequence. The people themselves are everywhere screaming that it's time for them to deal with these reactionary pigs. Even in America, they say, our leaders must be held accountable. They're only saying here that these people must be accountable to those who made it possible for them to get there. Thus, not only is the revolution inevitable, but it is clarifying itself and it is qualifying itself. For the African masses everywhere, the clairpoised position now for class struggle has become inevitable and irreversible. The petty bourgeoisie everywhere will be running for cover, but the masses will spare them not. Consequently, we who have dedicated our lives to the people's struggle, we who, knowing that the people will always be free, we, understanding that we must make a contribution to qualify our struggle since the 60s, have been dedicating all our energies to only one task: the organization of the masses of our people. The organization of the masses of our people. We are not running for mayor, we're not running for president. No changes can come from the top down. We're not stupid. Changes can only come from the bottom up. The masses and the masses alone can make them. If you want to learn something from the 60s, the lesson is simple: organize the masses of the people. Thank you.
My people, 6 months ago, something changed. For the first time in years, it looked like the United States had finally accepted a new reality in the Sahel. Washington stopped talking about isolation. It stopped talking about regime change. Instead, it talked about partnership. American officials traveled to Mali. Intelligence cooperation resumed. Sanctions on senior Malian officials were lifted. And then came a $147 million health partnership with Burkina Faso, which shocked many of us. Right here on this channel, we asked, is this the beginning of a new relationship between the United States and the Sahel? Well, 6 months later, that question has become a lot more complicated because Burkina Faso is once again under pressure from Washington after a call for sanctions over alleged human rights abuses. And so what happened? Did the Sahel change? Or did Washington change again? Today we're breaking down what just happened, what changed, and what it reveals about America's evolving strategy in the Sahel. And then we're going one step further because this isn't really about Burkina Faso. It's about Africa. Can African countries build lasting partnerships with global powers if the rules of engagement keep changing? Let's break it down.
What if you could make a song using only your voice? Let's start with the drums.
Hello and welcome to The Breakdown, the premier show on YouTube centering Africa and the Black world in today's global affairs. I'm Sandra Baby Boateng, and I'm here with you every weekday, cutting through the headlines, connecting the dots, and breaking down the biggest stories shaping our world. Now, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do so right now, and be sure to tap the notification bell for alerts so you never miss a new show. And because YouTube's algorithm won't always show you every episode, bookmark our channel, hosting our very first virtual members to you, although I enjoy that very much, but it's to build with opportunity in this community that we need to leverage a reality. And this benefit is available to our members at the believers level and came out of nowhere. Well, it didn't. You see, earlier this year, the United States did something remarkable. After years of strained relations with the military governments in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, Washington signaled that it wanted to reset the relationship. Senior U.S. officials traveled to Mali with a very different message. They acknowledged that the old approach wasn't working. Instead of making political transitions the centerpiece of the relationship, they spoke about respect for sovereignty, mutual interests, and building a more pragmatic partnership. And this wasn't just rhetoric. The United States resumed intelligence cooperation with Mali. It lifted sanctions on senior Malian officials. And then, in February, it signed a 5-year, $147 million health partnership with Burkina Faso, one of the largest signs yet that Washington was looking for a new way to engage the Sahel. Now, whether you agreed with that approach or not, the message was very clear. America had realized that the Sahel had changed. And really, let's pause there for a second, because why had it changed? Well, because the balance of power had changed. The alliance of Sahel states was no longer responding the way that Washington had come to expect. When the Trump administration pushed for deportation agreements, the AES governments refused. And then came the travel bans, but they reciprocated, making it crystal clear that they were prepared to absorb the pressure rather than reverse course. That was a signal that the old playbook wasn't going to produce the outcomes that Washington wanted anymore. And Washington understood what was at stake, because the Sahel isn't just another region in Africa. It sits at the crossroads of North and West Africa. It is central to counterterrorism, migration, critical minerals, and great power competition. More importantly, Washington knew that complete disengagement wouldn't leave an empty space, that it would leave a vacuum. And that vacuum was already being filled. Russia had deepened its security partnership with the alliance of Sahel states through military cooperation. China was expanding its economic and diplomatic footprint. New partners were emerging across the global south. And so the question in Washington was no longer, how do we pressure these governments? It became, how do we stay engaged without losing our influence? The visits to Mali, the resumption of intelligence cooperation, the lifting of sanctions on senior Malian officials, and the $147 million health partnership with Burkina Faso appeared to be more than isolated policy decisions. They looked like the beginning of a strategic reset. And so the question became, had the United States finally accepted that if it wanted influence in the Sahel, it would have to engage these governments differently? Well, for a brief moment, it looked like the answer was yes. And then August 12 happened. A senior U.S. Congressman, James McGovern, sent a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio urging the United States to take a much tougher approach toward Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. He called for targeted sanctions under the Global Magnitsky Act, which is a United States federal law that was passed in December 2016 that allows the government to block assets and ban visas for foreign individuals and entities who are responsible for human rights violations or major corruption. He also urged the administration to ensure that any future U.S. assistance to the region fully complies with American human rights laws. Now, let's be clear about something, okay? This was not the United States imposing sanctions. It was a call from a member of Congress for the administration to do so. James Patrick McGovern has been a member of the United States House of Representatives since 1997, representing Massachusetts' 2nd Congressional District since 2013. But politically, it still matters because it tells us that there are influential voices in Washington who believe that the recent reset has gone too far, and that human rights should once again be at the center of America's engagement with the Sahel. And that's where the contradiction begins.
Okay, Kayla, since like every one of my friends has now DM'd me asking why I'm with a 50-year-old, I'm just gonna tell you. His name is Mark, and there's exactly one thing my friends keep getting wrong about.
After years of sidelining the Sahel's military rulers, the United States is moving to engage more with countries in the region. Top military officials warned a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on Thursday that extremist groups had expanded their operational capacity.
Today, the epicenter of global terrorism is in Africa. ISIS leadership is African. Al-Qaeda's economic engine is in Africa. Both of these groups share the will and intent to strike our homeland. In West Africa, Al-Qaeda affiliate JNIM has demonstrated increased capacity to control key terrain in the Sahel, most notably by strangling fuel supplies around population centers. The capture of a capital city would provide Al-Qaeda with all the trappings of a nation state to sponsor global terrorism.
Anderson went on to praise collaboration with Nigeria following U.S. airstrikes on an Islamic State-affiliated group in that country in December last year.
We've also been working very closely with Nigeria, who has in the last few months opened up with a very positive engagement with intel sharing and ability to go after and target some of these terrorist threats that are in northern Nigeria. And so that has been a positive area that we've seen as well. We would like to reestablish some pragmatic relationships in the Sahel, where ISIS also has a stronghold where they are currently holding an American hostage.
Just months ago, the conversation was about re-engagement. But now, the conversation is drifting back toward pressure. Just months ago, Washington appeared to be saying, well, let's find areas where we can work together, despite our differences. But today, some in Washington are asking and pushing for that engagement to continue with stronger consequences for alleged abuses. And of course, this did not happen in a vacuum. For months now, international human rights organizations have put a target on Traore's back. You see, back in April, Human Rights Watch called for an International Criminal Court, ICC, investigation into alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Burkina Faso, including by government forces and allied militias during counterterrorism operations. We talked about it right here on the show. And then, just this month, August, the global civil society monitor, Civicus, added Burkina Faso to its watch list, citing what it described as an escalating crackdown on civil society, journalists, and human rights defenders under Captain Ibrahim Traore's government. Now, of course, Traore's government rejects those accusations. His position has actually been quite consistent, that Burkina Faso is fighting one of the world's deadliest jihadist insurgencies. The government argues that critics sitting thousands of miles away do not fully understand the realities on the ground or the impossible choices that come with confronting terrorist groups that routinely target civilians. And my people, This is where the conversation becomes much more complicated, right? Because there are two very different narratives competing for global attention. One says the international community cannot ignore allegations of human rights abuses, regardless of the security situation. But the other says, well, you cannot judge a government fighting for its survival without understanding the battlefield that it is operating in. And it is right at the intersection of those two narratives that U.S. policy now finds itself. Now, my people, let's zoom out for a minute, because this isn't really about Washington. It's about Africa. It's about how African countries navigate a world where powerful nations often reserve the right to judge others, while rarely being judged by the same standard. Think about it. The United States says that human rights should shape its relationship with Burkina Faso, or at least some people are pushing for that. And that's a legitimate position for any country to take if it wants. But many people around the world would ask a fair question. Who decides what the standard is, really? Because look at the headlines coming out of the United States itself. Controversial deportation policies, deaths in immigration detention, questions about policing, campus protests, debates over civil liberties. Whether you believe those criticisms are fair or not, the point is this: no country has a perfect human rights record. No. And yet, in international politics, some countries have the power to sit in judgment, while others are almost always the ones being judged. That is the imbalance that many Africans have become increasingly uncomfortable with. Because from an observer's perspective, this isn't simply about whether Burkina Faso should answer difficult questions. Every government should be accountable, yeah. But the question is whether accountability should flow in only one direction. Should powerful nations be held to the same standard that they expect of everyone else? Or do different rules apply depending on who holds the power? And that, my people, is why this story matters far beyond Burkina Faso. Because as Africa's leverage grows, African governments are beginning to ask a different question. Not just who wants to partner with us, but who treats us as equals. And in this new multipolar world, that question may become just as important as aid packages and security cooperation or investment deals. And so, where does all of this leave Africa? Well, I don't think the lesson here is that Africa should reject the United States, right? And I don't think the lesson is that Africa should embrace Russia, China, or any other global power either. I think the lesson is much simpler than that, actually. Africa should stop building its future around the assumption that any external partner will always act in Africa's interest. I've said this a million times on this show, probably by now, but every major power has its own priorities. No one would care about you more than they care about themselves. No, doesn't happen. Will never happen. The United States has its interest. China does. Russia does. Turkey does. The Gulf states do. And those priorities can change with a new administration, a new Congress, a new crisis, or a new geopolitical reality. And that's exactly why Africa must stop treating partnerships as permanent. Instead, it should treat them as strategic. Work with the United States where interests align. Work with China where interests align. Work with Europe where interests align. Work with Turkey, India, Brazil, and the Gulf where interests align. But never become so dependent on any one partner that a policy shift in Washington, Beijing, or Moscow can derail your national development. Because that's what sovereignty really means. Not refusing to work with the world, but having enough options that no one partner can dictate your future. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from the rise of the Alliance of Sahel States. Whether you agree with every decision those governments have made or not, they have forced the world to recognize something that many African countries are beginning to understand. Africa has more choices today than it did 20 years ago. And in a multipolar world, those choices may become Africa's greatest source of leverage. And so perhaps the biggest question isn't whether America has a strategy for the Sahel, right? It's whether Africa has a strategy for navigating all of the powers that are now competing for its partnership. Because, my people, that is the conversation that will shape Africa's future.
Have you ever wanted to see your home from space? With this free satellite Earth Maps tool, you can zoom right down.
But let me leave you with a final thought. You know, when Burkina Faso announced that it has signed a $147 million health partnership with the United States earlier this year, many people across Africa were surprised. Several African countries, including Ghana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, had either rejected or expressed serious concerns about similar health agreements, pointing to issues such as data governance, sovereignty, and the long-term implications of external control over sensitive health systems. So naturally, people asked, well, if Captain Ibrahim Traoré has become one of the continent's strongest symbols of sovereignty and resistance to external influence, why would Burkina Faso sign such a deal? At the time, many assumed that Ouagadougou had found a way to cooperate with Washington without compromising its independence. I know that's the position that many of you took in the comments when we talked about this on the channel. But 6 months later, with relations once again under strain, that question deserves another look. Because in geopolitics, leverage is everything, yeah. When you have options, you have bargaining power. But when you depend too heavily on any one partner, your room to maneuver becomes smaller. Now, I'm not saying that the health agreement caused what we're seeing today, no. There's no evidence of it, right? But what I'm saying is that the events of the past, at least the past 6 months, remind us that partnerships with major powers are rarely just about one issue. A health agreement can become part of a much broader diplomatic relationship. Security cooperation can influence political dialogue. Human rights concerns can reshape economic engagement. Everything becomes interconnected. And that's why I think the real lesson isn't whether Burkina Faso was right or wrong to sign the agreement. The lesson is that every agreement with a major power should be evaluated not only for what it delivers today, but for how it may shape your strategic options tomorrow. Because sovereignty isn't just about saying no. It's about preserving your right, your freedom to choose. Yes, today, tomorrow, but also 5 years from now. Hey, my people, before we continue, I need one quick favor from you.
But everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Spiraling rise.
In Northeast Africa, precisely on the horn of Africa.
But the local farmers.
Alright, what's going on? This may give me one side. Okay. All right, folks. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host. This is the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series as part of WCC every Sunday or every Saturday. So sometime we're going to be here Sunday and sometime we're going to be here Saturday. So today's topic, it says Washington, D.C. shame herself again. Washington, D.C. have shamed herself again in Burkina Faso with the same old colonial playbook. Washington, D.C. have shamed herself again in Burkina Faso with the same colonial playbook, with the same old colonial playbook. Now, before we bring out any article, let me say this first. Like you heard in the video that we just watched, that is an introductory video as we usually do. As you just watched in a video, right? And we spoke about this also when that deal with Washington, D.C. and Burkina Faso, right? About the head, because Washington, D.C. signed an agreement with Burkina Faso to build a health facility, all right? To build a health facility, okay, in Burkina Faso. And we spoke about that, right? And if I can remember, in our discussion, I also said, I'm not going to be too harsh on Burkina Faso or Ibrahim Traoré as to why he did it, because I trust him, right? I trust him, and I know he went through that agreement thoroughly, and he knows what is within that agreement, right? Now, and then with recent outcry, I'm going to say cry, right? The United States was crying, Washington, D.C. cried, right? And that is why we are here, to discuss these things. And then recently, August 12th, Washington, D.C. then come by, because I don't think, as a business person or as someone who has some partner with you, right? I came to your area and signed an agreement with you, right? To build $1.7 million healthcare facility in your country, right? Or whatsoever your entity, or geographical location, whatsoever it may be, right? And then I know I'm going to do that heavy investment, or I have started already, or I have it there. Let's just put it that way. And then 6 months later, then I come back, I say, oh no, the same government that I signed a deal with, and then come back and then say, this government is XYZ, this government is corrupt. So that means I'm also corrupt, because I just went and signed this amount of whatsoever deal with a government that is corrupt, and then come back and say, oh no, we need to charge this government. This government is corrupt. Does it make sense? It don't really make sense. It just means this government that I'm going against, right? I wanted certain things to be done, and I did not succeed. This government did not buy the idea of my foreign policy, right? So what I want in that Burkina Faso is not enough. This government is not giving me a chance. I'm not getting it. So I have to come again this, because listen, if the Washington D.C. that have quote unquote, right, signed a $147 million deal to build a healthcare facility, in quote unquote, if I remove this government, right, then that means the $147 million deal, healthcare deal that I decided to build, right, or provide for Burkina Faso is no longer going to be. Because if I remove Ibrahim Traoré, let's just put it that way, new government going to come in. So in case the new government come in and the new government does not agree to what I want to do in Burkina Faso, does that mean I'm there to help the Burkina B? No. Then I have to renegotiate with the new government coming in. So folks, what am I saying here is, the deal that Abraham Traore's son, I'm not a spokesperson for Burkina Faso. I'm not a spokesperson for Abraham Traore, right? But we're just looking at reality because we know what Washington, D.C. can do and what they have been doing. Now, this deal between Abraham Traore and the United States, this is what I want to say. This is my own take, okay? Now, Abraham Traore did it because if you have watched Abraham Traore's speeches, okay? If you have watched his speeches, he said, we are not against anyone. We are ready to do business with someone who respects our national constitution, who respects our sovereignty. Okay? Someone who respects what we stand for. Someone who respects what we are working for as a nation and as a people. Okay? So if anyone coming to Burkina Faso and respect our constitution, respect our government, respect our policy, respect our interests, all right? And then what we put to the table, they respect it, then we can work with that person. But if anyone come into Burkina Faso to undermine our national sovereignty, if anyone come to Burkina Faso to undermine us, right? To talk against us and not in the interest of the nation. And if anyone want to come and impose their policy on us, we will not work with that person. Now, Washington, D.C. saw it that if she cannot work with Burkina Faso or the Sahelian nation, she's going to lose interest in Africa, right? And we saw it. She makes serious attempt. And this time, and they themselves say that we have to change our old policy. It was Washington, D.C. We have to change our old policy. We have to change the way we have been making business with Africa. We have to change the way we have been looking down on Africa. We have to change the way we have been using our foreign policy to influence, what we want in Africa because it's no longer working. We have to change it. So Washington, D.C. went to Burkina Faso. Hey, listen. And we have showing that serious down here. Washington, D.C. went to Burkina Faso. Hey, we respect your policy. We respect your interests. We respect your constitution. We respect your government because at the time, right before then, Washington, D.C. have always referred to Abraham Traore as jointer, Tiani as jointer, Koita as jointer. But later on, they decided to change the language. All right? Instead of jointer, they said the leaders. Even though they didn't say president, but they said the leader of Burkina Faso, right? That's what they did. They changed from jointer, even though they did not say president, but they say, oh, we have to respect the leader of Burkina Faso. We have to respect the leader of the Mali and Niger. Okay? So they went with that. And then they said they are not coming to impose their will. Now, what is the moral of this story here? We want to get into the article, right? We have a lot, all right? To tell Washington, D.C., you can sit in your little corner and cry with tears whatsoever you want to. It's not going to work in Africa this time. We will tell Washington, D.C., you can create, look, Washington, D.C. let her go and create another story. In fact, let her, what they said, Manesky Act or whatsoever, right? They should create another act. They should go and create another act. But the reality here is, look, if Washington, D.C. don't be careful, this is her time to fall. She's going to fall. She's going to fall not because of anyone, but her attitude. It is a harsh reality. Somebody may say this. No, love is not soft. Let me say this. Love is not soft. Love is harsh. Someone who loves you, even the Bible says say it. If you read the book of Isaiah, right? It says, one who speaks softly to you is not love. One who speaks soft, kind, gentle. Just because someone speaks so gentle to you, that doesn't mean they love you. They are devil. The devil don't come to you with something harsh or no. The devil come to you very soft, okay? their dominion, very kind, nice. And then afterward, then you will not be saying, dang, I didn't know that this person was going to change because this person was so kind, this person was so lovely, this person was so this. That's the devil right there. And the Bible says, be careful. I'm talking about the Christians, those who believe now, right? It says, because we read all those things, because at the end of the day, we want to debunk anybody that come here. We can sit and quote from chapter to chapter without looking in the Bible. I will quote from chapter to chapter, from this to there without looking. Okay? Because this is a generation that you're supposed to fear. All right? So the Bible says, say it. Be careful with people who speak softly. War is in their heart. Be careful with them. Their voice may be soft or smooth like butter. Sword is in their hand to come and unalive you. It says it's there. And the same Bible says, speak like a son of a raven. That's what the Bible says. Those that speak like a son of a raven, those are the people you should listen to because they have a message they want you to get. They want you to listen to. Those are real people. That's what the Bible says. You think the Bible is some kind of... Look, the Bible is not what people come and tell you. The Bible is all loving or all those. No. If you read the Bible is a warrior book. No, look, it's that... How they call it, colonial Christianity will come to you, because that's how they manage to fool our people. That's how they manage to lie to our people. But the Bible is not no damn some kind of book. It's a warrior book. It's a warrior book. All right? But that's not the topic for today. But what I want to say here, the moral of this lesson with Washington, D.C. and Burkina Faso, with that $1.7 million deal for healthcare, right? To be healthcare facility in Burkina Faso. And this go to the other corrupt African leader. The moral of this story is never trust Washington, D.C. The moral of this story is you have your resources, and that's what we hear. We're going to show all of these things why Washington, D.C. is coming back. Because they want to destroy the Sahelian nation. They want to destroy Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso because Washington, D.C. know the face of Africa as we speak is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Washington, D.C. know the face of Africa is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. They know it. So their aim here is to destroy Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso before it gets late for them. Because it was said in the 1884 Berlin Conference. All the colonial nation that colonized Africa, nation that enslaved African people, it was said in that Berlin Conference, no matter how it takes, never you allowed their generation, their descendant, right, should never ever allowed Africa and African descendant to rise. Because if that happened, that would be the doom for them. They know it. So that's why when I hear people saying, oh, I was not in the 1884 Berlin Conference, even though my parents did it, I didn't do it. But the truth is, we wasn't there either. Okay? I wasn't part of the people that was chained. I wasn't part of the people that was on that ship. I wasn't part of the people that died on sea by the hands of the white man, the slaveholder. All right? I wasn't there. Equally so, you were never part of that 1884 Berlin Conference. You were not on that ship that was raping our women. You were not in Ghana, all right, to the slave dungeon, okay, who were on top of the building, having a judge there, while our mother were honored there. And when you ready, you go and take our mother and take them upstairs and have sex with them and rape them. You were not there. Yes. But the proceed of that evil act, you are living it. The legacy of that evil act, you are living it. All right? You are living it. And not only that, the playbook that was laid down as to how to systematically keep black people to the bottom and not for them to rise. You are playing by that book. You are going by the rule of that book. So don't tell me you was not there. If you was never there, do not go by the playbook that your forefather left for you. Because as we speak, the fought that Kwame Nkrumah fought for, we still fighting the same fight. But the people coming to Nkrumah were fighting against, they are not alive. But their children are alive, and the descendants of Kwame Nkrumah are alive. So they are still fighting the same thing. So don't come and tell me otherwise. The same reason you kill Thomas Sankara is the same reason Abraham Traore is fighting for. And the people that killed Thomas Sankara, they may not be alive today, but their children, their descendants are alive. And for the same reason you kill Thomas Sankara, Abraham Traore is fighting for the same reason, and you want to unalive him, you want to kill him. And then you want to come and tell me, oh, you were not there in that time, period. You can take that bullshit from elsewhere, but it's not going to work on this generation. The moral of the lesson, never trust Washington, D.C. And the reason why we're never going to trust Washington, D.C., we're going to discuss some of this. We are here to expose. We are selling Sarah on this channel. Our aim here is to destroy imperialism. Our aim here is to destroy the evil capitalist system. And we are unapologetic about that. Don't get it twisted. So if Washington, D.C. can let her lesson, we don't really care. If Washington, D.C. will think she will come like, okay, you know what? We have recognized our mistake. We want to work with you people, and then we accept it. And then later on, you know, that's the same thing you guys did when you came on the African continent. You came with a smiley face, and then we showed our system to you. We expose ourselves to you. But now you have an evil deed. Before we look, you start kidnapping us, colonizing us, enslaving us. And then you came back, divided the continent into cake. You know, and today, your descendant still sit down, this current generation of white. Like I watched a video, these stupid white folks were sitting, telling a Nigerian guy, should we come and colonize Africa, Nigeria for the second time? Do you supposed to say that? Just for that statement, just for that statement, you acknowledge what your evil forefather did to black people. Just for that statement, you acknowledge what your evil and demonic forefather did. Parents did. Mothers and your mothers and your fathers did to African people. You acknowledge it. To tell a black man, you never lived at that time, but at the same time, you're telling a black man, we are coming to recolonize you again. Oh, that is why Washington, D.C. sat down and vetoed the higher crimes committed against human rights ever, the transatlantic slave trade. Not that we are forgetting the Arab slave trade. Not that we are forgetting the Arab slave trade. But the discussion at that time was the transatlantic slave trade. And Washington, D.C. said it was never a crime. So how can someone like that come to us to tell us what human right is? Washington, D.C. does not have the audacity. No lawmaker in Washington, D.C. had the audacity to tell black people what human right is, what human right is not is. Washington, D.C. does not have the moral audacity to tell African people anything when it comes to human rights. But let's continue. I don't want to go into that. We will talk as much as we're supposed to talk, but let's bring out the evidence, and then we will put it in the face of Washington, D.C. and their lawmaker in Congress. Do they really think, look, do Congress really think that we care anymore? You know, sometimes when your downfall is coming, right, you don't see it because you still live in your imagination that if we did this, we can still do it, man. That's how Washington, D.C. is feeling. If we did this, trust me, we can still do it. That's how they are feeling in their delusional minds. So let's look at this article here. All right? Let's look at this article. Now, am I going to fully blame Abraham Traore in the first place for signing a deal with the U.S.? No. Like I said, I trust the leader of the Shahid. All right? I trust them. So I'm not going to blame them. But at the end of the day, what we're going to say here, right? I will tell you, Burkina Faso did the right thing. Had it been that, let me say this. Had it been that Burkina Faso never signed this agreement with the United States, had it been that Washington, D.C. never did it, right? They were going to come out with a story that they went to Burkina Faso and they recognized Burkina Faso. They recognized their government. They recognized their interests, their policy, their constitution, whatsoever, right? They was going to say this. And then they were going to say, but at the end of the day, Burkina Faso threw us away because we wanted to do business. We want to do business as business partner, all right? We wanted to do this. We wanted to do this in the country. First of all, it was going to use this means, all right? For the citizens of Burkina Faso to go against Ibrahim Traoré. They was going to campaign vigorously on this to say, listen, we went to Burkina Faso with no strings attached. Trust me, they was going to do it because they have the media. They have their corrupt media. They was going to say, this is what we wanted to do to Burkina Faso. To build $147 million healthcare system for the people of Burkina Faso with no strings attached. And it was never alone. Okay? It was a way of coming back to Burkina Faso, all right? To have a saying with Burkina Faso and not to cut off away from Africa or from Burkina Faso. They were going to frame the story a different way. And some maybe, let me say this, maybe some Burkinabe who don't understand the US or Washington, D.C. Maybe some Burkinabes who don't understand, they will be like, but these people are coming to build healthcare system for us. So why will the president, say no to them? They was going to frame the story a different way. They were going to do it a different way. Just for the citizen to go against Ibrahim Traoré. So in its own sense, right, it was good this agreement went on. But equally so, Washington, D.C. just exposed herself because she is so greedy. She does not understand what time it is. Or maybe she understands what time it is, but she does not care because she's still living in a mindset of her, hallucinating. She's still hallucinating on something different. She imagines on something different. She don't understand the time period that we are in. So in her mindset, now we have Burkina Faso because we're going to use this mean right after we sign this deal and then come out with an allegation. An allegation has been going on since about human rights. This man violating human rights. But we want to ask the United States before we bring up the article out. We want to ask the United States before we read the article. We want to ask the United States, Washington, D.C., especially this governor, all right, that came out with this governor. We want to ask this governor. You work in Congress. There have been several allegations against the United States Congress. There have been several allegations against the USAID. There have been several allegations against the United States taxpayer dollar that it is being used to sponsor Boko Haram, to sponsor terrorists. Okay? The USAID is a federal, organization that the federal government uses in other countries. And this federal agency, all right, that pretended to be an NGO that the United States Congress worked through have been accused. Have you ever come out to investigate it? Say you love Africans, that you want to fight for African human rights that have been violated, right? Have you ever? Because it's there. You sat in Congress and you saw your congressmen and women, your police, your ally, accusing the United States taxpayer money, accusing the United States organization, all right, entity, USAID, that they are funding Boko Haram. They are funding terror. They are funding ISIS. Have you ever, say you love Africa, say you want to fight for human rights, okay? Have you ever questioned the United States government? Have you ever questioned the USAID? Have you taken it to the Hague? Have you taken it to the human rights watch about what has been said? Because we want to believe these are concrete information, because those are your colleagues, those are your partners that made this allegation. Have you ever asked them, say you love African enough, Say you love African, you know that you want to fight and die for African. Have you ever asked them enough? Oh no, let me ask this. You want to fight for human rights. But you see it on the French media. It is not government officials that have been interviewed. It is terrorist leaders that have been interviewed on government official on the French media channel. The French media gave avenue or access to the terrorists to be interviewed. You fighting for human rights for Africa, all right? Have you questioned the French government? Have you questioned the French media? You have never done that. Never. You have never done that. Okay? Now, the Arab Spring, a terrorist entity that you sponsor in Libya to take down Gaddafi. Okay? And now, these terrorists, the ammunition that you sent in that era have been alleged. I will use that, right? That same ammunition and terrorists are the people in the Sahel region. You fighting for human rights. Have you questioned that era? Have you gone over there to solve that era? Oh no, let me go deeper and deeper again. The United States and NATO with their allies, they just walk on a continent, walk to a nation, remove this nation, destroy this nation in the name of democracy, destroy and unalive the president in the name of democracy, in the name of this guy is against human rights. He's destroying the Libyan life. He's doing this against Libya. You want to provide a good life. Have you ever called Obama of what he did? Look at Libya today. Have you ever called Hillary Clinton? We remember Hillary Clinton sat down and said, we saw, we conquered. She was so happy and jubilating. She was happy for Africans, right? But today, have you summoned Obama? Have you summoned Hillary Clinton to ask them about the improvement in Libya? Today, Libya is serving as one of the center, okay, for slave trade. Oh, you love Africa. You love Africa. You want to fight for human rights. Have you investigated this case to take the United States to the Human Rights Watch? Have you ever done that? You guys are so hypocrite. But it will not work this time. It will not work this time. It will not work because Washington, D.C. have never fought for Africa. Washington, D.C. have never done anything good for Africa. Yes, you may say, oh, we donate there, we donate there. No, you donate whatsoever million or billion or thousands of dollars to a puppet government. You don't give it to the state because the state don't benefit. So we have the right to say you have never done anything. We don't care how much you give to individual government. We don't care how much you give to individual president in Africa. It is not of our interest. Let those Africans come to press you. Let those bourgeoisie leaders come and press you. We are not going to press you for that. You have never done anything in Africa but chaos, frustration, death, proxy war. So you think we care? You know what time it is? I don't think you understand the time period that we are in. But let's read this article. You think we come to sit here when you are giving money to corrupt African leader and then come and say, oh, the United States gave 2 million to for example, to Liberia. No, it is not to Liberia. You gave $2 million, for example, to the government to put in your pocket to sponsor our children overseas. And then take the rest of the money back, take the rest and then come back and put in American banks. It don't go towards the people of Liberia. It don't go towards the people of the African nations. It go to individual president, and that's why they are rich. So we understand now what time it is. So we don't really care if you say you donated 7 million, 7 billion, 5 billion, this billion, that billion. Your billion is not effective, but at the end of the day, it's very suppressive. Because once you do that, you bought the government. You buy the government. And then if the citizens want to do anything about their resources, about their minds and things, if that government is not a Pan-African or a revolutionary that we have in the Sahel region, what happened? That government go all out police and they do police brutality and then start shooting citizens. Do you come and speak? No. At that time, your human right is silent. It's not human right. It's not against human right because your interests have been fulfilled. But not in a country where your interests are not honored. And then you go there with your fake human right. Do you understand what human right is? Do Washington, D.C. understand what human right is? Look, let me say this. All the nations are colonized and enslaved Africans. You have no moral standing to tell about human rights. You are the biggest violator of human rights in human history. The United States is one of the biggest biggest violator of human rights ever in human history. Washington, D.C. is one of the biggest violators of human rights ever in human history. So you don't have the moral standing or the moral ground to tell Africans about human rights. Because we have evidence upon evidence to show to you. Look at Libya today. Look at Libya. Look at Libya under Gaddafi rulership, and look at Libya under the United States democratic form of leadership. Because as we speak, Obama is the president for Libya, and Hillary Clinton is the prime minister for Libya. But look at Libya today with your leadership. Look at Libya today with the kind of democracy, the form of democracy you provided for the people. Look at Libya today. The last time we checked, you told us you're going to bring down Sudan. Look at Sudan today. You want to talk about human rights? We have all these evidence against you. So you have no moral standing. You have no moral understanding about what human rights is. When thousands of Sudanese are dying after you have sat and said, in 5 years, you will bring certain country down. In 5 years, you will make sure you bring Libya. Look at Libya. After you sat and said, in 5 years, we'll bring down Sudan. Look at Sudan. So who are you to come and talk about human rights? You have no moral audacity. So go and sit somewhere in your Washington, D.C. Because there are more human rights that have been violated in the United States here. And you keep shouting about it. Who are you? Let's look at this article. 6 months after $1.7 million, U.S. help deal, Burkina Faso faces fresh sanction, threat from Washington, D.C. We can read now. We can read and we can understand. We don't have to wait for BBC or your CNN. After all, they never work in the interest of African. But we will let you know what time period you're in. You will never take advantage of African people again, African resources. Anyway, let's go ahead. There are things we're going to reveal to African people here. What is Shahidi? Look, let me say this, folks. Let me say something here. You see that $1.7 million, right? I don't know if it was given to Burkina Faso or the United States herself was going to, use a form by herself to build whatsoever, right? But I can tell you, if that $147 was given to Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso, right? I can tell you at this point, Burkina Faso can make it $2 million and give it back to the U.S. That I can knock my chest, and I'm going to show you right here. And I'm going to tell you why the United States, look, these people don't want progress for Africa. Let's read. I don't want to waste your time. See, let me show you something, what is going on behind the scene. Let me show you something, what is going on behind the scene in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, that the United States, Washington, D.C., that France, that UK, Europe, they don't want it before it gets late for them. Because the Shahidi nation have already set the benchmark for Africa. But guess what? The United States is not going to succeed. France is not going to succeed. UK or Europe, they are not going to succeed. Something is going behind the scene, folks. Something is going behind the scene. I can tell you, right? $147 million, right? Burkina Faso can make it $300 million and give it back to the U.S. Let's read. Let's read. Now, it said the U.S. is pressing Burkina Faso over alleged human rights despite recently agreeing to $147 million in help aid, deal or whatsoever, right? Let's read. Now, and let me say this. That $147 million is not even in Burkina Faso. It has not even been used. That $1.7 million or $147 million, the project have not even started. Okay, it have not even started. So maybe it was just something that was said, and then even later, Ibrahim Traoré said, "Oh no, you know what? Forget it. I have seen what you want to do, right?" So they have not even started. That money did not even go. Ibrahim Traoré don't even have it. It was just 6 months ago. All right. So something is going on behind the scene, and that's why they are coming out to say this. I want to believe. Let me put it that way. Okay. No, I want to believe. Let's read. We know what we're saying here now. Congressman J.P. McGovern urge sanction under the Global Magnitsky Act. You know, this Global Magnitsky Act, right? It's a demonic, how they call it, entity that they created. And do you understand? You know why this Global Magnitsky Act was created for? It was created, right, to subjugate, to strangle nation, right, that will not want to accept American foreign policy or Washington, D.C. foreign policy. Okay? And then, if you are a nation that is so dependent on Washington, D.C., then they will, because Washington, D.C. will not just get and say, you know what? Liberia failed to accept our foreign policy, so henceforth, we're going to put sanction on you. You see it? So it is the same thing today. Like, look, you will hear Liberians saying the ACS does not colonize a nation. All right? That's what they say. A society cannot colonize a nation. But who formed the society? Who gave the society name? Who put money into the society? Is a society just working by itself without human being? The society have a rule. The society came out with a memo of what to do. First of all, the reason why it's called colonization, it is an entity that colonizes. That's why it's called colonization, because it colonizes people, right? Okay? So, the United States was, without the Global Magnitsky Act, they will not just come and say, hey, we're going to put sanctions on Burkina Faso because Burkina Faso did not agree to our foreign policy. So, they have to use an entity, right, set behind an entity, and then say the Global Magnitsky Act have seen that Abraham Traore, have committed heinous crime against human beings. So, we are going to the Human Rights Watch, whatsoever. So they use these things. It's just like within the United Nations. The United States have a clause in the U.S., in the United Nations. They can go to any nation and do anything that they want to do, right? And then they just have to say, we went there. They have it in the United Nations. Like, it just finished slip from my mind. All they need to do is use that phrase. That's all. All they need to do is use that phrase. It's finished. It's done. You can't charge them because that's the phrase they put in the UN, and that's the phrase they use, and they don't want to control the UN. You see it? So this Global Magnitsky Act, it is not a good entity. It is not an entity that actually fought for human rights. Because the United States is one of the most violated against human rights in the world. But this Global Magnitsky Act never go after them. Did they go after Israel? Look at Lebanon. Look at Gaza. Look at Palestine. Did they go after them? Did they go after them? Look at the kind of human rights that have been violated in other African nations. We have Togo. We have Cameroon. Even Liberia. But why this Global Magnitsky, I don't talk about those people. Because their interest in those nations, right, are being protected by those colonial puppets we call president. So they will not go for them. But you see the nation that they are going after, right? See the nation they are going after. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, those are the nations, right, that are the face of Africa, to uplift Africa. Those are the nations that are the face of Africa, right? Telling Africa the right direction. South Africa is not telling Africa the right direction. Look at what happened in South Africa. Did you see the Global Magnitsky Act against human rights to talk about Ramaphosa? No, because Ramaphosa in their pocket, Ramaphosa protect their interest in that place. That is why Ramaphosa came here to Washington, D.C. Donald Trump, look at him like you have to go back to the slave dungeon. All he said was, Mr. President, Mr. President, no, don't say that now. A whole leader sat down in front of another leader and he got humiliated. All you could say, Mr. President, Mr. President. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did not call him Mr. President. No, Donald Trump did not call him Mr. President. But he did, Mr. President, don't say that. That is what these people do. Look at what happened in South Africa. Under Ramaphosa, people were being killed. Hospital cut off. Just because of they say migrant. People unalive on street. People beating on street. No, the Global Magnitsky, I don't go there to go talk about Ramaphosa, human rights. Like, you're not talking, the government not talking. No. but they are going after leaders who do not bow down and say, yes, sir, master. Yes, sir, I obeyed you. No, they are going after those people. But the truth is, this attitude of the US, of Washington, D.C. is what going to bring Washington, D.C. down. Nobody, it's their own attitude that going to bring them down. It is their own attitude that are going to make nations to isolate themselves away from them. Now, look here. As we go down into the article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but look here. It says, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have distanced themselves. Yes, of course, that's the reason. Have distanced themselves from the West, forming the alliance of Sahel state. Now, Washington, D.C. should go and sit in her corner, in her Congress, and ask herself, why Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have distanced themselves from us? I think that's why they should go and sit. And they will find the answer if they are truthful to themselves. And maybe if they don't know, I can give some of them here. The people, the Arab Spring you sponsor in Burkina, in Libya to unalive Gaddafi, they are the people that have spread. Oh no, your organization, the USAID, it have been known or alleged by your same congressmen that these are the people that are forming the terrorists. And it is the same terrorists that are terrorizing Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso today. Or you will find the answer. But maybe you will not be truthful to yourself, because you are one of the nations that is not truthful. Now let's read. The latest development came on August 12th, when the U.S. Congressman J.P. McGovern urged Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as we all know, another one, Marco Rubio, to make human rights and civilian protection. Look at this nonsense. To make human rights and civilian protection central to Washington, D.C. engagement with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. You know, like I said, these people, they are so naive. They don't check a nation before making statement. It is the same Burkina Faso that the citizens of Burkina Faso have spoken and said, they don't want no two-party system. They don't want no three-party system. They don't want no four-party system, because they want the two-party, three-party, four-party system. And, you know, the Western nation use it to corrupt. Because if the party in power, it is not agreeing or in agreement to protect Washington, D.C. selfish foreign policy interests, then they use the other one that is not in power called opposition. They sponsor that, all right? And then they put money into it. Then they tarnish the government. Because the two-party system, right, the nation will be divided no matter what. Because there are people, right, who will be for the other party. They will never be for the other party. What are they? That the party in ruling, right? They will not be for that party. Even if that party is doing well, they will never be for that party. Because they are political, party interest based. So if the political party not in power, right, and the one in power does not support the Washington, D.C. interest, what they do? They go to the opposition, sponsor the opposition, put money into the opposition, right? And then opposition have followers. Because they will not see the reality. Because in their mindset, they want for the party they believe in to come to power. Even if that party is not doing well, they don't care, because they believe their tie is strongly to that party and not to the nation. And that goes with most African nations. And Burkina Faso citizens are one of the smartest citizens of the world. They have recognized that and say, you know what? We support Ibrahim Traoré. We don't want two-party system. We want one. And in fact, they have made Ibrahim Traoré president for eternity. So, Marco Rubio or Governor Arnold James or who my governor, how you call your name, understand that. So, what are the rights that have been, how they call it, violated in Burkina Faso? When the citizen has spoken and said, Abraham Traoré for life, Abraham Traoré to your eternity. So Abraham Traoré did not sit and say he's a president for eternity, he's a president for life. It is our citizens. So how you call that violator of human rights? But anyway, we understand when the U.S. is talking about violation in African nation, we understand what they are talking about, and we will go to them and we'll show it to you what they mean when they say violation of human rights. We'll show it to you. Don't worry. This is the WCC. Now, we want to be skipping a little bit. The move created a sharp contract, right, with Washington, February agreement with Burkina Faso, on which the United States committed up to $147 million over 5 years towards healthcare. The agreement demonstrated that despite worsening political relationship, Washington, D.C. or Washington still saw area where cooperation with Burkina Faso remained possible. But today, that is impossible. You know, Washington, D.C. is just making African to realize her behavior every day. Okay? The way she think every day, the way she think about Africa, the way she want Africa to be. You're making her smart every day. Because this is how now you will go to Mali, they will not take you. This is how you will go to Niger, they will not take you. They will say, no, you see what you did? We don't trust you. You came, you went to Burkina Faso with street mob. You went to Burkina Faso, you know, we recognize you with this, but at the end, look at what you did. No, we're not doing business with you. And that even go to other African nations now who are looking at the roadmap of Burkina Faso. Look, you know what? I'm going to take this article out because there is something I want to show you. I don't want for time to go against them. There is something I want to show you that Washington, D.C., France, Europe, they are afraid. Look, Africa is rich. Look, Africa don't even have to. Look, let me, you know what? I will show you that. Africa don't have to come to the West for anything. And I'm telling you, Africa don't have to come to the West for anything of help. I'm telling you it. Of help. Especially to come and beg for money, to come and beg for finances. Look, Africa don't need to do it, man. And Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have exposed that. The new pressure comes with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have increasingly distanced themselves from Western government and institutions. Exactly, that's the only reason. Because of the attitude of the US, because of the attitude of France, because of the attitude of Europe, this nation, they have the right. I don't think the United States want to be in a toxic relationship with any nation. So Burkina Faso, so Mali, so Niger. I don't think France want to be in any toxic relationship with any nation. So Mali, so Burkina Faso, so Niger. I don't think Europe want to be in any toxic relationship that will affect Europe and her citizens, that will accept US and her citizens, that will destroy France, life and her citizens. So do Mali, so do Niger, and so do Burkina Faso, and so do Africans. What good for US is also good for Africa. What good for Europe is also good for the black man, for the African nation. And that US should understand the time period we're in today. That Europe should understand the time period we're in today. It is not a time period where the United States will go and get for free. It is not a time period where Europe will go and get for free. It is not a time period where US will just go and give money to a few government officials. Europe will go give money to a few government officials and then get it for free. It is not a time period where Europe will go and run lies. Where United States will go and run lies. Like how Europe and the United States did it and then went and killed Gaddafi. Destroy Libya. It is not that time period again. Now we understand the game of the US and Europe. We understand it. You have played that game for centuries. Of course, you won. Of course, you got what you wanted, but no more again. You see, things that does not belong to you, it don't last forever. Things that is not for you, it don't last forever. And that is why just 3 nations in Africa make move. And all of you guys are shaking already. All of you guys are shaking. Your economies are crumbling, crashing down. Just 3 nations. Not even the entire African continent, just 3. 3. And you're already shaking. That is because those natural resources are not yours. It is not for you. It is not connected to you. You stole it centuries upon centuries. This is the idiot right here. This guy, that's him right there. And he been in Congress since the 90s. What have he done for Africa? He been in Congress since the 90s. What have he done for Africa? Since the 90s. You know what? I'm going to do some research on him to see what he has done for Africa. We're going to come up with part 2. Because say he loves Africa, he's fighting for human rights, right? For Africa, for Burkina Faso, for Mali, for Niger, right? For the people in our region. We want to see, because he been in power since the 90s. A lot of South Africa said now we're getting her independent. A lot of South Africa now we're getting her independent. He been in power since the 90s. Maybe either after 4 years before South Africa got her independent. So we want to see what he even did for South Africa. We want to see what he did for the African nation. Before today, he want to come forth for Africa. I will do part 2 on him. You know, these people don't understand what time period it is. They don't understand what time period it is. Now, he went as far as saying they have instilled expanded tie with Russia and sought closer economic and diplomatic relationship with other countries in the global south, including China. Who cares? I mean, the United States, you lost your position because you have ill will towards Africa. China was not there. Russia was not there. I mean, when did China go to Africa? When did Russia actually go to Africa to say, you know what, we want to do this? It is you, Europe. It is you, America, that have been there. So go back to your closet. Go back to your Washington, D.C. and ask yourself, what have we done? What can we do different? And at this time, you still continue to shame yourself. We thought you came to your senses. But going back to Burkina Faso and say, you know what, we recognize the leadership. And then afterward, you come back because you did not get what you fully wanted. Because you wanted for China to be out. You wanted for Russia to be out. Then only you be there. Are you crazy? We do business with who we want to do business with. If the United States do business with who they want to do business with, why can't Burkina Faso do it? Why can't China do it? I mean, or Russia, or not Russia. Why can't Mali do it? Why can't Niger do it? Other nations do business with whosoever they feel pleased with whosoever they feel that it is going to be in their interest and not against the interests of that nation that they continue to do business with. So why? What is the difference if China, Russia, if Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger do the same thing? Oh, so only you should have human right to do what you want. Only you should have the right to do what you want to do. But nations shouldn't have the right. Other nations shouldn't have the right to do what they want to do. That is hypocrisy in a higher place. Let's take this out. But you have seen a reason, right? You have seen a reason as to why they are going against Abraham Traoré, right? But let's see this. Let's look at the people that are fighting for human rights. Let's see this. Okay, this is why they are fighting for human rights. So when you hear the US, when you hear France, when you hear Europe talking about human rights in Africa, this is what they mean. So when they talk about human rights, it is not in connection with Black people or African people. Okay? When they're talking about human rights, that means you are progressing and they don't want it. It is against their right for African to progress. It is against their right for African to be independent. It is against their right. Watch this.
Until Africa rewrote the rules. London thought it was untouchable until Africa rewrote the rules. In a single decade, the continent transformed from a developing market into the world's fastest growing economic engine. Factories in the UK shut down, investments evaporated. Global markets flipped as trillions shifted toward Africa's booming industries, mineral dominance, and tech-driven economies. Europe panicked.
Day would come when the United Kingdom, the country people once saw as the land of opportunity, would be discussing whether to approach the IMF for help. Yes, that moment has arrived. The same UK whose passport was once considered one of the strongest in the world is now facing an economic and social breakdown so deep that millions are thinking of leaving the country altogether. The truth is harsh. London and many major British cities are no longer the places.
I have some more bad news for those living in England. The UK is set to be on course to be one of the saddest places to live. Skyrocketing inflation has turned bedroom banter to raging arguments. They're unhappy because of the cost of happiness. It has gone up. Living standards have taken a dive. Romantic night outs are too expensive. The great British dream is crashing, and with that, so are house prices. Add higher taxes to the heap of troubles, and you'll find
The UK scrambled, but the world had already chosen its next center of gravity. And it wasn't London. Africa rose with power, competence, and strategy. And the collapse in the UK was just the first shockwave of a new global era. The UK wasn't just losing influence, it was losing the very competition it didn't know had already started. Africa was no longer waiting for permission, the validation, or partnership. It was setting the pace, rewriting the rules, and redefining the future of global power.
October 2008, Britain almost went bust.
We were on the very brink of Armageddon. The stakes were incredibly high.
The giant Royal Bank of Scotland, known as RBS, ran out of cash.
They couldn't get to the end of the day. The bank was finished.
And the government had just 24 hours to save the British economy.
We only had one shot here. If it did,
is that while you still have a communist regime in the shape of the Labour Party, a country, even if we were now, supposing Reform were now to get in, they say, right, we will have corporation tax at 5 or 7% or whatever the lowest rate is, that would no longer tempt the companies that are now in Ireland to come to Britain, because they know we have this hideous communist party which would change it all just because they deliberately want to wreck the British economy. It's not a matter of accident. Do you suppose that
the first tremors of the shift began long before anyone in the United Kingdom recognized them? At first, they were dismissed as temporary disruptions, market fluctuations, or the normal churn of a global economy. But beneath the surface, the foundations of an empire-era system were crumbling. The UK, weighed down by years of stalled industrial growth, shrinking investment, and political miscalculations, found itself on a downward trajectory precisely as Africa began its most dramatic rise in modern history. It started with energy markets. While the UK struggled to stabilize its aging grid and manage costly imports, Africa was rewriting the rules entirely. Massive new solar corridors stretching across North Africa, geothermal expansion in East Africa, and newly discovered offshore reserves in West Africa turned the continent into a global energy magnet. Investors searching for new frontiers saw an opportunity not just to extract resources, but to participate in the construction of a new economic order, one powered by African infrastructure, African labor, and African leadership. The UK's manufacturing sector felt the blow first. Factories that once supplied machinery, automotive components, and processed goods to African markets suddenly found themselves without orders. African nations, now invested in domestic industrialization, began producing many of the goods they used to import. Local steel mills, refineries, automotive assembly plants, and agro-processing facilities rose across the continent with remarkable speed. What Europe once sold, Africa now made and sold to others. The result in Britain was devastating. Production lines went quiet. Industrial towns that had already endured decades of decline buckled under the latest shock. Jobs vanished not gradually but in sweeping waves. The media tried to explain the situation as part of a global transition, but the truth was more painful. Africa was outpacing the UK in innovation, market growth, and investment attractiveness. The financial sector in London noticed too late. For years, Africa had been viewed as a high-risk market, politically unstable, underdeveloped, and unpredictable. But those narratives collapsed as African nations formed powerful economic blocs, integrated tariffs, and built new security alliances to ensure stability. Suddenly, Africa's growth was not only fast, it was coordinated. Pan-African development banks were expanding lending faster than London could analyze their effects. New digital payment networks enabled seamless cross-border trade. African currencies strengthened as commodities, manufacturing, and services surged simultaneously. Investors began to withdraw from the UK in favor of African opportunities. The numbers were staggering. Billions left London's financial markets and flowed instead to new tech hubs, industrial parks, and agricultural zones across the continent. The UK, once the global kingdom of investment, now watched helplessly as its capital streams dried up. High streets in British cities reflected the crisis. Businesses shut down, first small shops, then larger chains. Consumer confidence plummeted. Citizens saw the signs everywhere. Layoffs announced weekly, cost of living pressure rising without relief, retail giants closing branches. And the once celebrated financial sector struggling to adapt to a changing world. Meanwhile, Africa expanded its global presence with confidence. New transport corridors linked ports from east to west. Trade routes that bypassed Europe entirely emerged. A continent once dismissed as dependent was now the gravitational center of a new economic universe. Agriculture was the clearest indicator of Africa's momentum. While the UK's farming sector suffered from shortages, reduced subsidies, and supply chain failures, Africa became the world's agricultural powerhouse. Vast fertile regions.
Okay, due to time factor, we can't play the video now, but you got the concept, right? So, one, it is better, okay, on the other side of nations, of continent that they take advantage of. One, it is better, it gets worse on the other side. So, when these Western nations are talking about human rights, it is not actually the human right that you know. Now, it may be true. Every nation have some issue in their country, all right? Every nation has some issue. But the issue you face in the country, when they are talking about human rights, if Washington, D.C. is talking about human rights, it is not that human right. It is not that issue that you face in your country. Yes, they are going to use that means, what you are doing in our country, they are going to use that right for you to think, for you to go against your government. Look, Washington, D.C. is never, and this is not just Washington, D.C. Just go to France, go to UK, all of them. None of these countries, okay, will have interest in your country and our nation. Let's say your president is protecting their interests, their foreign policy, what they want, it is being protected by that president, okay, by a nation president. And then you see Washington, D.C., or you see Europe talking about human rights against your president. It's never, ever going to work. They will only talk about human rights in a country whose president does not respect or honor their foreign policy over the interests of their country. That's the nation they go after. Now, if there is little one or two things, going on in our country, they will use that. And that is what they are doing. But it is not because they are actually speaking for your interest of what is going on. For example, look at Uganda. Look at Uganda. We talk about this, and that was a few years back. And I said, my brother, Bobby won. Europe or America is not coming to your aid. Unless Yoweri Museveni is not stop doing, the interest of the West. Look, let's be frank. Yoweri Museveni may talk one or two things against the West. It's all politically, or how they call it, or tactics. Okay? But the interest of Washington, D.C. is being protected in Uganda. The interest of Europe, it is being protected in Uganda. Don't get it twisted. If not, then they have you. Bobby won't have gone to the European Union for help. And which, of course, we said it here several times. That's the wrong place you're going. Until Europe Museveni can stop protecting the interests of Europe, then before Europe turn to you, until they can stop protecting the Washington D.C., they can stop protecting the interests of Washington D.C. before they can come to you. But if not, they are not coming. Look at the crime that has been committed in Uganda by the Ugandan president. Have you ever seen the so-called Human Rights Watch in Uganda? Have you ever seen it? It will, if they go there, it will look like a betrayal, because Europe Museveni will say, I'm protecting your interests. I'm doing this. Why are you guys coming after me? They will never go there. They are not going there. But we all know, we all see on the internet, time for election. We all see what's going on. We all see how Uganda have been beaten. Uganda have been burned. In fact, as we speak today, it have been alleged. Let me use that word. It have been alleged. Some Ugandans went missing. They have now been found. Their parents, their relatives have never found them. Their husband have never found them. Their wife have never found them. Their children, their loved ones have never found them. They went missing and they are still missing. And Bobby won't speak about it. But where is the human right? Bobby won't have called a human right time upon time. Where are they? So, folks, when Washington, D.C. is talking about human right in your country again, just make sure your leader may not be 100%, but your leader is on the right path. Whenever Europe is talking about human rights in your country, your president or leader may not be 100% as you want it, but just make sure your leader is on the right path. You better support that leader. You better protect that leader. So when they are talking about human rights in your country, it is not the human right that you think that you are going through, or the little thing that you are going through in your country. The human right they are talking about is their interests are not being protected. The human right they are talking about is what they want to get in your country, they are not getting it. Things that they used to get for free, they are not getting it. So if France is talking about, for example, human right in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is obvious. You already know. So that's how it is. Let's continue. So these people are so desperate, right, to the extent they can even go after their own people. If they see to it that their own people, right, are doing something that is not going to be in their interest, even though that their own people is doing the right thing. Let's watch something here. Like I said, we're not going to bring opinion thing here. We're going to bring things that they themselves know about, okay? Because we know where we are going. We know the kind of topic
Israel.
I have made it clear to the Israeli leadership that I do not support their expansionist ideas. The indigenous people of that land have rights that cannot be ignored. We must find a fair solution, not one dictated by any single group.
When you study what's called the Battle of Letters, March and April of 1963, David Ben-Gurion and Kennedy are exchanging some pretty fierce letters. Yes. Kennedy is trying to get inspectors into the Dimona nuclear reactor. Ben-Gurion is basically telling them to pound sand. Something goes on between Kennedy and Ben-Gurion, and to where Ben-Gurion was maybe threatened or whatever, but he ends up stepping down. Sure. So Kennedy starts to exchange letters with Levi Eshkol, who was like the interim prime minister after Ben-Gurion leaves. And there's one letter in particular where they're all pushing back on getting inspectors into Dimona. And Kennedy tells Eshkol, if we can't trust Israel on whether or not your nuclear program is peaceful or not, it could seriously jeopardize our relations. And when he says it seriously jeopardize our relations, what he means is, I'm going to fucking end you. So when I look at the repercussions of the Kennedy assassination, I feel like that's the day that America came to an end. That was kind of the coup de grace, because that was when the Zionists took control of our army. Because what they do, they implanted Lyndon Johnson, and anyone who thinks Lyndon Johnson wasn't a fucking Jew doesn't understand his history.
Yeah, do you think they're actually real Jew? Do you think?
Well, he had a mother, and he was raised.
Liberty, obviously, you know, right? I had one of the guys in there come on, and he was talking about how after Israel attacked them, obviously they 100% knew, like a 2-hour battle, they had a giant American flag.
Lyndon Johnson was in on that.
Oh yeah, no, exactly.
He said, I want that ship going to the bottom of the ocean, you know?
Okay, so you see that, right? Now, I'm not going to go deeper into that, but what you heard is what you heard. What you got is what is for you. But you see it, right? These are people, right, who can go even after their own people. Now, what you heard in the video, right, about Kennedy. Kennedy, in his mind, right, he was fighting for his interests of his people as a president, as a leader for America. He don't care about what's going on in other people's country, right? Let them fix it. No, I'm president for America and I'm president for Israel. But again, you know the story. You know who control the what you understand, right? You know who decide who to be president. And when you come there, you must do what they want, right? So he said, I'm not president for Asia, I'm president for America, so I'm going to protect American interests and whatsoever. Now, the rest is a history. I'm not going to go there. But you heard what he said, and that bound. So that is to tell you, the people who are coming to fight for you as human rights, the people who did not care for you, they colonize you, castrate you, they all kind of thing. Look, I always continue to say this. Look, no African, no black man should believe Washington, D.C. when they speak. No, at this time, these are the same people that came to you. So, are you telling me what they said about Gaddafi was true? And then when they killed Gaddafi, it was lie. Because they themselves came by, they said they killed Gaddafi for the wrong reason. What they told us was lies. So why should we still believe Washington, D.C. when they talk about any African leaders? The thing they said about coming to Nkrumah, was it true? They themselves, they know it. And then after a year, but they came back and told us what they said about Nkrumah, it was not true. In fact, Nkrumah wanted good for Africa, and that's why they killed him. I mean, that's why they remove him. So why should we still believe these people when they come and tell us about what they say about African leaders? Oh no, let me remind you again. They killed Thomas Sankara. And then later they came back and they said the reason why, I watched a video from an FBI interview. They asked him, but why you guys went against Thomas Sankara? And you know what he said now in our interview? Oh, because he was too aggressive. He was too aggressive and wanted fast change for his people. You know, I watched that, I was like, what? So that's why you kill him? So imagine, these are all great leaders who wanted good for Africa. And these people did not like it. They did not want those people. Look at Patrick Lumumba. The reason why they killed him, it was not because he was killing people, he was hating people, or he never wanted good for Africa. They killed him because of his dream plan for Africa. Amilcar Cabral, they killed him because of his dream good plan for Africa. The histories are there. So why should Washington, D.C. still come and tell us about African leaders, they bad they are, and we still believe them? Why are they not talking about Cameroon, Paul Biya? Why? I mean, if they talk about Cameroon, then we'll say, yeah, Washington, D.C. is actually in our interest. If they talk about Farouk of Togo, we will say, yeah, Washington, D.C. is in our interest. Yeah. If they talk about these leaders, if they talk about bringing these leaders to the Human Rights Watch, then we'll say, yes, these people are in our interest. They are doing the right thing. But history is clear to us. America never liked Nkrumah. They never liked Thomas Sankara. They never liked Patrick Lumumba. They never liked Amilcar Cabral. They never liked Malcolm X. All these leaders, they never liked Michael Garvey. You know the histories are there. And they run propaganda against these people. Because I believe if Washington, D.C., Europe, they were going to allow Nkrumah to live and rule and do what he want to do, Ghana could have been a different place. Africa could have been a different place. If they were going to allow Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso could have been a different place. Africa at large could have been a different place. If they were going to allow Patrick Lumumba, Amilcar Cabral, you name it, Africa could have been a whole different place. Africa could not have been going on a sea, on the Mediterranean Sea to cross to go to Europe, to America, people dying. No, it was never going to happen. Africa could have been a different place. No more going to die on the Mediterranean Sea, looking for greener pasture. It was not going to happen. Africa was not going to be going to the World Bank begging for money. It was not going to happen. And we'll show that here, what is going on currently in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. When Gaddafi was doing the right thing, Gaddafi did not go to World Bank. Gaddafi did not go to IMF. Gaddafi did not come to Washington, D.C. to beg them. Gaddafi was not coming when the summer African leaders, Gaddafi was not coming there. The only time you saw Gaddafi going for meeting was to ECOWAS or AU. But Washington, D.C. did not a summer African leader, you see Gaddafi there. France did not summer African leader, you see Gaddafi there. Hell no. England did not summer African leader, you see Gaddafi there. Hell no. Hell to the no. Gaddafi went to AU meeting. Gaddafi went to ECOWAS meeting because those were the things that was priority to him and to Libya and to the African continent and to black population, the black citizen worldwide. That's what he was trying to do. But what happened? They killed him for that. So why should Washington, D.C. at this time come out again? Africans, people, to tell about Mali, to tell about Burkina Faso. Now we still believe we still believe Washington, D.C. that Abraham Traore is committing crime against human rights. Do we want to believe that again in this time? When the history has proven systematically the lies that come from Washington, D.C., these folks are liars that say that in Washington, D.C., they are liars. They are deceiver, they are devil, they are demon. Demon means someone who deceives you, who lied to you. They lied to about Sankara. They lied to about Gaddafi. They lied to us about Robert Mugabe. Let's go on. They lies. They are liars. We don't believe them. We don't trust them. Should we still trust them when history has proven to us systematically? These guys in Washington, D.C., they are all liars that sit down there. Some good folks are there, like how they call it, Mark Perry, that came out, that were brave to say, hey, no, this is why USAID is doing, sponsoring terrorists, and some good folks are in there. There are some good folks in there, but there are bad and demonic folks in there. Let's continue here. Let's see what Dr. Arikina said or says to African people. There's the message. Let's see what she said.
Expect those who put us in a position of servitude. Don't expect those who put us in a position of servitude to undo the damage. They will continue it for as long as we're stupid enough to continue to listen to their lies. Wake up, Africa. Wake up, black people around the world. Africa is your problem. Own it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. For Africa to change, for you to be able to benefit from what is yours. What's in Africa is the inheritance of every black person on earth. But if you're stupid enough to listen to the lies, and while they continue to exploit your Africa, while they continue to amass wealth for their children, grandchildren, and generations to come, then the joke on you.
Madam Arikana sends a powerful warning to African leaders still acting as Western puppets. Don't skip any part of this video. Her powerful speech is one every African needs to hear. Watch until the end.
Why are we still going to the United Nations as Africans? That is a useless entity. It's not for us. The largest voting bloc in the United Nations are the African nations. We don't have a seat on the table. Why do we go there? We go to the United Nations to vote on their issues. They pay African countries, vote with us on this issue, vote with us on this issue. We have no business going to the United Nations, period. We need to tell Secretary Guterres, thank you very much, but we're no longer going to attend United Nations. It's not our entity. Until we have true representation there. Goodbye.
All right.
I mean, it's true with every engagement with the West.
All right.
For example, Zimbabwe and many other African countries, the remains of our ancestors who they murdered are still sitting in jars in their countries. Why are we going to engage them?
Right.
We want those remains returned with repercussions. Until that's happened, everybody from your country out. If you were from a Portuguese colony or Portuguese, get out of my country. I love it remember when there was this rift between President Mugabe and Prime Minister Tony Blair. And Blair was like, we're coming to take all the British out of Zimbabwe, we're airlifting them. And the response President Mugabe was, listen, I've given all my police and military that if you see any British citizen that wants to get out, escort them to the nearest exit point. Get out. If we can just make that position, your government is abusing us. Your government is refusing to give us back our ancestors, the remains of our ancestors who they murdered. Your government is refusing to give us back our artifacts, precious artifacts, priceless, that they stole. Until these wrongs, these blatant wrongs are righted, every British citizen get out. Every Portuguese citizen get out. Every German citizen get out. Let's see how quickly things will change.
Move from there.
It is those citizens who are going to now go to their government and say, we didn't know you were doing that. Let me make this point clear. The citizens do not know of the crimes that are being committed by their governments. So let's put the power back to the people. Let's remind the people that every constitution starts with we, the people. So let's make those citizens, they must succeed in their civic duties. We, the people, are the ones who are failing. Let's come together. Let's understand the issues. And so for those of us who are elders, who are in the know, we have a responsibility to educate and inform. Once the citizens are empowered with knowledge and the understanding of what is really going on, I do know for a fact, the average citizen of the world wants a righteous world, a world that is free of hate, racism, bigotry. That's what the average citizen wants. Here you are getting ready to get your independence between the late 50s, early 60s. You are getting your independence, but before you do, we want you to sign this document that is called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. Agree to continue to be colonized, but we're giving you some independence. So I took the time to really make sure that I would hammer that message to the African diaspora. And I would also say, you are being thrown a shiny object. They want you to focus on corruption in Africa. I'm not saying we don't have corruption in Africa, but then there's corruption everywhere. In fact, if the truth be told, there is a lot more corruption in the Western world. Don't expect those who put us in a position of
Now, that's a message from Dr. Arokena. And I'm not even going to explain anything because I don't want to take nothing from that message. That's it right there, right? But I see some corruption in the United States here. Corruption. Let's see some corruption in the United States. And not just the United States, right? Washington, D.C. The same place. This governor, whosoever call his name, my governor, whosoever his name is. All right? We're going to do more research on him because I want to see what he has done for African people in the U.S. here. Then before even doing a research about Africa, what he has done for African people in Africa. I want to see what he has done for Black people in this country. We'll do research. We'll come with part 2 here. Now, let's see the corruption in Washington, D.C. Let's see.
Today began issuing termination papers to multiple police officials who have been under investigation for allegedly manipulating crime stats. News 4 confirmed 2 commanders and a captain have been told they will be fired.
That investigation stems from a story that News 4 first reported on last July after Commander Michael Pulliam was relieved of his command in the 3rd District by then Chief of Police Pamela Smith. Pulliam was accused of manipulating crime data, an allegation that he denied.
News 4's Paul Wagner joins us now live from outside of police headquarters with the latest on the story. Paul?
Well, on in Erica, News 4 can confirm that Michael Pulliam was told today by Internal Affairs in the police department that he would be terminated for the actions that he had allegedly taken part in over the last previous year.
Oh, it gets worse.
It was also confirmed that the 2nd District Commander, Tatiana Savoy, was also told today that she would be terminated. Those two are just two of a number of officials that we understand have been told that they would either be terminated or they would face other forms of discipline. It was back in July that News 4 first reported that then Chief of Police Pamela Smith had placed 3rd District Commander Michael Pulliam on leave and accused him of changing crime data, lowering the classification of crime.
So, a black captain in DC finds out that the officers in her precinct, in her department, are manipulating the crime data in the computers so that when you go search the crime stats, it shows something completely different than what is actually the real thing. A certain demographic, when they get arrested, he goes in the system and finds their classification, and he lowers their crime stats. Whatever crime they've committed, if it's a felony, he brings it down to a like he keeps, and then they're working with the DA clearly, because the DA will eventually drop those charges to a lesser charge, right? And then she fired him for that. And then remember, when she brought it up, accused him of doing that shit, fired him, and then Trump now sent in troops to go take over the precinct. The department, sent troops to take over the department because of that. Now, let's check this out.
Report aired. President Trump, in the weeks after, held a news conference at the White House and announced the federal takeover of the police department. Trump said he was doing it in part because of, quote, phony crime numbers. In our report, Union President Greg Pemberton leveled his own allegations, saying manipulating crime stats in the police department was widespread and that officials on a regular basis were downgrading serious violent crimes to lesser crimes so that it would not show up in the department's crime stats. In the weeks that followed, the Department of Justice and the House Oversight Committee announced it would launch investigations as well. When those reports came out, they were highly critical of Chief Pamela Smith. The DOJ report said Smith's leadership created a coercive culture of fear, while the report from the House Oversight Committee.
So you see the biggest corruption there, right? This is Pamela Smith, right? That was the director of chief police or whatsoever things, right? She was the one that got those white folks fired who were manipulating the system, like you saw in the video, right? Well, those white, how they call it, officers, if there's a crime committed by white people, and then it entered into the database, they lower the crime, they lower the charges, right? And then when they lower the charges, and then the judge in there gave them lower, sentencing or lower whatsoever you call it, right? So that they can get our area. All right, or they can't even get into the system, right? Into jail. Like maybe they'll just be on a horse arrest for something, for a few more, whatsoever you call it. If it is black, those white folks carry the charges up. You see it? Carry the charges up high, right? And then they gave them more time in prison. They gave them more time, sentences and things. So Pamela Harris, she been a black, chief of police or officer there, right? She noticed it. And then fire those people. And then when she fired those people, what then happened? Watch for the next part, what it did to her. Imagine she did the right thing, right? She did the right thing fighting for her people. And this goes across Africa. If you are fighting for your people, these people, they don't like you. And that go to the US. So it don't matter whether you out of Africa or you in Africa, it don't matter. We all fighting the same fight with the same system, with the same people. Imagine what it did to her for doing the right thing. And this is what happened to Africa. This is what even happened to Abraham Traore, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, who are doing the right thing. But the same system fighting you here is the same system fighting them back there. She did the right thing. And that is the same way African leaders, some, especially the Shahé, are doing the right thing. But see what they are doing to them. And see what they did to her. Watch the second part what they did to her. And what they said. See what they said. She's corrupting. She's putting fear. You see that? by doing the right thing, by firing those people who will go in the system and lower the charges for white people. And then those white people will get lower charges and things. They may not even go to jail. They will set them free. But for black, and then those white folks will go and carry the charges up high. And because they were working with a judge in there, like you see, and then the judge will go ahead and carry maximum sentencing, higher sentencing for those black folks who are sitting today in jail. And then this black lady noticed it, dismissed those people, but then see what the media said. They fire her for that, for her position, and then what they said, she's putting fear in culture, she's doing this, she's doing this, she's doing that. Do you see the corruption? Did you see Washington, D.C.? Did you see those Congress people? Where is Mark, so-called governor, whosoever they call him? James P. Mark Governor, whosoever his name is. Do you see the corruption in Washington, D.C.? In your own nose, where you work, in the capital city there, where you work. Do you see the corruption? Did you speak about this? Do you know this against human rights? You violated her right in the first place for doing the right thing. But because she fired some white folks, you see what they did to her? You see what the system did? You see how they tarnish her reputation? They say she's putting fear. She going against culture. You see that? Culture or corruption that she tried to fix, and he said she's going. You see that? These are the people who have the audacity to come and tell us what we need to do.
Said the chief created a toxic management culture. Chief Smith then stepped down in December, but defended her handling of the way crime stats were reported.
So even the chief of the union president for DC police had to come out and admit that that tampering of crime stats is widespread. It happens all over, right? And then the police chief, who's a black woman, was investigated, and they said that she created a culture of fear. You know what culture she created? She told them that shit y'all doing is not gonna fly under my leadership. The toxic culture that they're talking about, she basically said, y'all gonna do your jobs. What you swore to do, that's what you're gonna do. We're not doing any of that extra bullshit anymore. That's the toxic culture. She came in and said, I need you to do your jobs. I need you to stop lying. I need you to stop manipulating the crime stats. And they said it created a culture of fear, and everyone snitched on her because, again, white cops. So they forced the black woman to step down because the black woman went in there trying to fix things. She's the one that, so the only reason this is happening, the only reason these firings are happening is because a police chief, a big police chief, a black woman blew the whistle. If she kept quiet about this, we would never know. And this is why black men always have the highest crime stats, because white cops, not only do they let white men walk away, not only do they refuse to arrest white men, when they do arrest them for those crimes, there are other white men that go in the system and change the data.
So now, look at this corruption. Look at this corruption. You see it? Like Black Panther said, right? 24/8. Exactly. Look at this corruption. Right in the face of Washington, D.C., in the capital city. Where are those congressmen who are fighting for human rights, who so love Africa or African people? Where are they? Look at what is going on. In their own country, in their own nose. Country that they lead, that they rule, that they say they did that. Look at it. Look at the corruption, broad day corruption. And then now the person who facing the system, they frame her ugly. You see what they did there? They pressurize her, she had to resign. And then see the crown they put on her, cultural intimidation. Can you imagine that? Yeah, that's cultural intimidation because she's exposing you. That's the same thing they do to the African continent. So the fight is the same. It's no different. It's no different. It's the same. You see that? These are the people that have the audacity to come to tell African people what you need to do, what you need to do. So what they said about Nkrumah was true. We know where you dated Nkrumah. So we don't trust you, we don't believe you. Nothing should come from Washington, D.C. about African leader, we believe them. Especially our great African leader who we know they are doing a good thing. Let them go and talk about Tinubu, we understand. Let them go. They will never talk about Tinubu. They will never talk about Paul Biya. Paul Biya is kind of 100 years old now. Paul Biya is almost 100 years old. He's still in power. As we speak today, we don't even know whether Cameroon have a leader. Because there's no even information about Paul Biya right now as we speak. But you never hear the human right talk about it because their interest is still being protected by the hierarchy in Cameroon. And then you want to come and put your mouth on Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. James, my governor, whosoever you call yourself, you better behave yourself. You better behave yourself. You better behave yourself. There's a different time period. Leave Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso alone. The corrupt African leader who still want to be under the yoke of imperialism, right? Let them be there. But the nation that decided to go away, you better leave them alone. What is good for the U.S. is also good for the Shahid nation. What is good for Washington, D.C. is also good for Ouagadougou. What mark governor or governor, whosoever you call yourself, what you think good for the people of America is also good for the people of Burkina Faso. So you better leave those nations alone. Because the truth is, it is not just Mali you are going against. You are going against the entire black nation, the entire black population worldwide. That's the people you're going. That's the time period we're in. If you like, go and talk about Paul Biya. We care less to do with that. We will sit and watch you. If you like, go and talk about Tinubu. We will sit and watch you. We care less to do with that. Those are your puppet leaders that you put in power. Those are your people that you can dictate to. You can tell them anything at any time. They say yes, sir. They say obey. They say master, yes, sir. But for me, all as Tinubu is, a young man in Washington, D.C. will dictate to him. And then he be obedient to yes, sir. Yes, sir. But our young kings in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, they will never say yes, sir, to any Washington, D.C. congressman. You can be whosoever you are, they will never say yes, sir, to you. They owe you nothing. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, or Washington, D.C., nothing. Washington, D.C. is on a different constitution. Mali is on a different constitution. The constitution of Mali is not the same as Washington, D.C. or the same as United States. United States Constitution is different from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The rules and regs, in fact, the citizens of the United States is not the citizens of Burkina Faso or Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The citizens of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, they are not citizens of Washington, D.C. So leave them alone. At this point in time, we don't want for Washington, D.C. to come to speak for Africa about human rights because you are biased. You are not a human rights advocate. You are so biased. So leave Africa alone. You want to talk about African nation? Go to the African nation that you still control those leaders as your puppet. Yes, go there. That's your right. Go to those nations because that's their puppet nation. Go there. Go there and talk about human rights. That's fun. Go. Now, let's see something here, right? What the United States, Europe, or France don't want to see about Africa. And let's also see what Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have shown the roadmap for Africa. That Africa does not need a pennies from America. It is America who needs pennies from Africa. Africa does not need a pennies from Europe. It is Europe who needs pennies from Africa. Let's watch this. So when it's talking about human rights, this is what they don't want to see.
lots of it. And Mali is gold. The Sahel has gold, lots of it. And Mali's gold output has just jumped 30%. Now the Alliance of Sahel States is trying to do something much bigger. Keep more of that wealth at home. Control more of the gold pipeline and use its resources to reduce outside pressure. Reports suggest Mali produced 23.5 tons of industrial gold between January and June. That is up from about 18 tons during the same period last year. And it beat the government's forecast of 21.2 tons. At that pace, Mali is on track to meet or exceed its full-year industrial production target of 43.2 tons. The surge in gold output comes despite persistent instability in Mali. In April, al-Qaeda-linked Jainim and Tuareg rebels launched coordinated attacks against the military government. But despite relentless security pressures, gold production in Mali has rebounded sharply. But this surge in gold output is not just a commercial win. It is the operational fuel for something far larger. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the three members of the Alliance of Sahel States, are major gold producers. Together, they are estimated to reportedly produce around 230 tons a year. At current gold prices of more than $4,000 an ounce, the market value of gold production exceeds $30 billion.
Now, hear that. I mean, $1 billion, not million. So, $1 billion. Just in few years, this leader came to power. $1 billion. $1 billion. Why would a nation that plays in $1 billion come to the US for aid? Come to the US for $2 million? A nation that already has $1 billion, right? Why would they want to come to the US for the US to get them 2 million, 3 million, 4 million? Why would they go to France for 2 million when you already have $1 billion? Why would they go to Europe for 4 million when you already have $1 billion? Wouldn't it be the other way around for them to get the US million? Wouldn't it be the other way around to get France 2, 3 million, 4 million to power their nation? Because as we speak, no power. Wouldn't it be the other way around for them to give UK 4 million, 5 million in aid for them to put it into their economy? Why would a nation that have billion get in plane, come to the US and beg for crumbs? This is what they don't want. So when they're talking about human rights, this is what they are talking about. For these people not to have their right. When they're talking about violation of human rights in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, this is what they are talking about. These people not to have the right because they want for the right, right? The right that they want is for the resources of that region to go to Europe and America. That's the right they are fighting for. The right the United States is fighting for is for the resources of those nations to come to US free, to go to France free, to go to Europe free. That is the right. The $1 billion that Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are supposed to receive, no, that $1 billion should come to the US, and then in return, the US take $2 million and give it to Mali and Niger, Burkina Faso in aid. It keep our stuck. It keep our dependent. So you see how Mali and Niger, Burkina Faso have paved the way for Africa rise, for Africa independence. You understand? Now you see it. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso will never come to the US, go to France, go to Europe, and beg for aid when they are playing already in billions of dollars. Did you see that? So now you see why they are talking about human rights. So when these folks are talking about human rights, it is not of your interest. You have to sit and think twice. Know your history. Because according to history, the US have never fought for human rights for Africans. According to history, France have never fought for human rights for Africans. According to history, Europe have never fought for human rights for Africans or black people. It's not there. You can't find it. Yes, there might be individual good people, but not as a nation. How when US ready, they go to their lawmaker, they use their fake organization they set behind to talk about human rights, this, that. No, yes, there are good individuals in the system, right, who will point out some of the ill in society. But as a nation, the US have never fought for human rights for black people. As a nation, France have never fought for human rights for black people. As a nation, Europe or US, or how they call it, or England or Germany or Poland or Dutch, you name it, they have never fought for human rights for African people. It's not there. You can't find it. You will never find it. It's not there. So when they're talking about human rights, it is not of your interest. The human right is you are about to control your resources. You are about to be fully independent. That is the human right they are against. They are talking about.
Following their decisive exit from ECOWAS, these nations are moving beyond political severance. They are building an alternative economic architecture around gold. And that is where resource nationalism comes in. Mali's 2023 mining code increased the potential state stake in mining projects. Burkina Faso has also moved to increase state participation in mining, while raising royalties on higher value production. Niger has taken a harder line with some foreign operators, including the nationalization of the Somer uranium operation, previously controlled by France's Orano. But controlling the mine is only the first step. The bigger prize is the absolute control of the gold pipeline. For decades, much of Africa's raw mineral wealth has left the continent before producing its full value. The AES is now burning down that old blueprint. Burkina Faso launched a national gold refinery in late 2024, with a reported capacity of 150 tons a year. Mali broke ground on a refinery in 2025, a project linked to Russia's Yadran group, and this with a planned capacity of up to 200 tons a year. The Malian facility is also reportedly majority state-owned. If extraction creates the wealth, refining can help determine who captures more of it. And that is where the geopolitical story deepens. Because Mali is not simply replacing the West with Russia, it is trying to widen its options. Reports suggest Western mining companies remain major players in Mali. B2Gold's Fekola mine was the country's biggest industrial producer in the first half of 2026, while Barrick's Lolu operation also remained a major producer. At the same time, Mali's security and political ties with Russia have deepened, and that creates a very different model of engagement. Foreign capital can still enter, but Bamako wants more control over the terms. But there is a hard limit to that strategy. Security. Mali can produce gold, it can build refineries, it can renegotiate mining deals. But terrorist groups, including Janum, continue to threaten large parts of the country. And that creates a basic problem. Gold can create revenue, but revenue means little if the state cannot secure the territory where that wealth is produced. Now, that is also the test for Russia. Moscow has become a major security partner for Bamako, but the persistence of the insurgency shows that security pressure has not disappeared. The real battle facing the Sahel is not how much gold lies beneath the ground. It is who controls the pipeline, who captures the wealth, and whether that wealth can deliver real protection to the people.
Patria o muerte. Venceremos.
How do you measure a revolution? By the governments it topples, by the lives it changes, or by the ghosts it leaves behind. History has no shortage of revolutionaries. Most are remembered in history books. Some are remembered in monuments and statues. But there are only a few whose face, or the silhouette of it, becomes more famous than their name.
So you see, right? That is the kind of human right the U.S. is talking about, right? To put Burkina Faso back to perpetual dependence, back to perpetual poverty, all right? To put Mali back to perpetual dependence, perpetual poverty. To put Niger back to perpetual dependence, perpetual poverty. To put Africa back to perpetual dependence, perpetual poverty, as the resources continue to proliferate from the African continent, right, to Europe and America, to Europe, American economy, to Europe, how they call it, America economy, and so forth and things, right? For African to still want to migrate to die on the Mediterranean Sea. Because if Africa is better, African will no longer die on the Mediterranean Sea. That is the kind of human right America is fighting for. Let's watch another video.
Our next story is also from one of the West African Sahel states. This time, the focus is on Niger. Over the last few days, the nation has made two major moves toward expanding its oil industry. First, drilling commenced at Niger's Kafra oil well. And second, the country signed a $1.9 billion agreement to develop an oil refinery. The move shows that Niger is planning to become a major.
So again, listen to that, right? The first one, right, was gold. Just gold. Listen, just gold, right? Billions upon billions of dollars. Now we come to oil. And then oil is another billion. So that's how rich Africa is. Look, Africa, look. So you see why they want Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso out. Because this nation has shown to the rest of the African continent to open their eyes. And sorry, not the rest of the African continent. The rest of the African nations to open their eyes. I mean, just two resources. One, gold. What in there? Look, billions of dollars. Because I don't want to say 3 or 4 years, because when these people got to power, right, in the first 2 years, they was fighting to take the mine. Right? So basically, let's just say in 1 year, right, in gold, these people have raised billions of dollars. Number one. Number two, in the same year, and in oil, another billions dollars, billions in B. So give these people, if they are not fighting jihadi, right? If the West is not sponsoring jihadi as it has been sponsored, if the West taxpayer money are not sponsoring terrorists as it has been alleged, right? If they are not giving logistic support to the terrorists as it has been alleged, well, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso is free. Just how these puppet nations in Africa are free, right? They are not fighting. Give Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso 6, 7 to 10 years. You'll be talking about trillions of dollars, because in their first couple of years, they never had access to the resources. They took those years, those 2 years or 3 years, right? Or 2 years or 3 years or so to put a government together. Okay, mobilize their security, convince the citizens, for the citizens to be on their side within our 3 years, in our same 3 years. All right, and then making negotiation with technology with Russia. Okay, or educating our people in those technology. All right, how to fight the terrorists, because it came a time when Abraham Traore said it will come a time the Sahel nation. If you are a terrorist, you find yourself in the Sahel nation, just consider that you are committing suicide. So within that time, right, These nations, right, they were preparing and they are still preparing. Imagine, so they're not talking about taking the resources. They are preparing, putting themselves together, because if you don't have an army, you can't protect the resources, right? You should have an army, a trained army, sophisticated army, that as well, right? So within that time, these nations, they are putting their things together and then coming out with step as to, okay, you know what, if we take the mine, if we take the diamond, the oil, what are we going to do? So within that time, in that same time frame, they are putting all their ideas, their things together. Okay, so we can't just take the mine and then go and then we just leave it sitting. Okay, and we can't just take it and then give it to another country. So it's the same thing. So within that time, they are putting all their plans and everything. Look, that is why, look, at this time in Africa, you should have a young leader. Not just young leader, but revolutionary leader. Not just young leader, but pan-Africanist leader. Who know the history, like Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso leader know the history of Africa. Who know the history of your nation. Don't have a leader in Africa that does not know the history of that nation. Don't do it. You see, Abraham Touare, when he ready to talk, because he know the history of Burkina Faso. He know the history of the African continent. He know the history of the African masses. He know. Mali know. Tiani know. Keita know. So these leaders know the history. So don't just have an African because we want a young African leader. No. Let them be a Pan-Africanist leader who know the history of Africa, who know what they are coming for. And you see why Abraham Touare said, I did not give off my youth day to come and play, to come and betray my country. I did not give up my youth day because if to come and sit here, all in that, I was going to leave it and go enjoy my youth day, go and play around, have fun, get women here, go be colonial puppet, and, you know, get money and send my children or, you know, Europe and America for them to go to good school and then buy cars and then buy, you know, buy $7-8 million house in UK, in US, right? And then take the rest of the money, put it in American bank, Wells Fargo bank, you name it. So he said, I did not do that. To come be president here, to come and play fun. You see it? So imagine that. So basically, let's just say these leaders took 1 year because they have to get their mind thing. Right? They took 1 year. In 1 year, just go. These nations already have billions of dollars. Just go alone. And then look at the next one, oil. Oil. Billions of dollars. Oh my God, sometimes when I see these nations, right, I get jealous. Why? My country, Liberia. We have uranium. We have oil. We have diamond. We have gold. Liberia, look, the diamond in Liberia, right, is one of the most precious diamonds that you can find in the world. But these minerals are being dug, are being, how they call it, taken from the soil and taken to overseas. Well, Liberia does not benefit only higher government official because they are sharing in those things. You see? So this is what America does not want. This is the human right violation America is talking about. This is the human right violation Washington, D.C. is talking about. Let's continue. Imagine in a year time, just diamond, they already created billions of dollars for that region. And then oil, another billions of dollars for that region. Imagine that. Uranium is not even here in the picture. This is just two. Diamond and oil, just two. Now, we want to get to uranium, right? Imagine you get into uranium, another billion. Imagine you get into cotton, another. So imagine that. So Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are showing the way to the African continent. Going to Europe, going to Washington, D.C. and Somalia, playing for all of you is disgraceful. Because they have to give you $1 million. It's disgraceful. When you have the $1 million already here. In fact, not even 1 million, when you have the $1 trillion already here. But you go to be humiliated in Washington, D.C. and be packed on buses. You go to be humiliated in England to be packed on buses like sardine. for $1 million when you got $1 trillion here. And that is why some of these so-called puppet African leaders, they don't like the leader of the Sahel because they still want to be in our colonial yoke. Let's continue.
Major player in petrochemicals. Let's take a look at these moves one at a time. Now, starting with the Kafra oil well. The well is located in northern Niger, about 85 kilometers from the country's border with Algeria. The location is one of the reasons why Algeria has been interested in the well. In fact, the company carrying out the drilling is Algeria's state-owned oil firm, Sonatrach. Now, the Algerian state oil firm had obtained a prospecting license for the Kafra oil block back in 2005. It explored the block and discovered oil there years ago. Now, the block is expected to hold over 260 million barrels of oil reserves. In 2022, Niger and Sonatrach renewed their agreement, and it was also a production sharing deal. But the following year brought instability. Niger saw a coup, and it has taken a while for the situation in the country to stabilize. It seems the Algerian state company now believes that calm has returned to Niger, which is what could explain why Sonatrach has finally begun its drilling operations. Algeria is also deepening its role in Niger's energy sector. Sonatrach is now working alongside Niger's state-owned oil firm, Sonidep. The two national oil companies have started jointly selling Niger's crude oil. Now, the first joint sale of Niger's Melek crude took place on Friday. And that's not all. Algeria has also started supplying Niger with jet fuel. The first delivery took place on Saturday. Now, all of this marks a new phase of cooperation between the oil sectors of both nations. And even more things are in the pipeline, including a literal pipeline. Niger and Algeria are cooperating on the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project. It will extend from Nigeria to Algeria through Niger. Niamey is reportedly cooperating with Algiers to get the pipeline constructed. So this is another sign of the increasing cooperation between the two nations. But even as Niger gets closer to Algeria,
all right, because of Tara, we can't play. But again, now you see the power shift. Now you see how, other African nations are seeing the reality. So now you see how, again, the continent is kind of about coming together now. So now you see, right, resources now being just exported, like taking out of the country, raw material and thing. But now you see what the Sahelian nation have done. You see, it breaking that cooperation, that agreement between nations. Because at the end of the day, Algeria want oil from Mali. Because at first, Mali was not processing anything, not doing anything. They have puppet leader Issa. So Algeria, right, was taking advantage of Mali or Niger. Algeria was taking advantage of Niger, getting our oil. But now you see, you have a government in power that is not, a puppet or a neo-colonial puppet, but a government that see the reality, right? A leader that see the reality that it must be in Niger. Nigerian need to enjoy their resources. Algeria, need the oil. So now you see how Algeria is cooperating with Niger. At the end of the day, now you see Algeria, saying back France, look, listen, Algeria interests are at stake here. Because if we don't do it at the end of the day, regardless of what, Niger are going to partner with different people. And hey, we are not going to be puppet to France and we allow Algeria interest to go just at that. So at the end of the day now, Algeria have to work with Niger. So you see how things gradually shifting on the African continent. That is the human right, how they call it, violation, the US is talking about, or how they call it, Washington DC is talking about, or how they call it, Mark P. McGovern is talking, or James P. McGovern is talking about. That is the kind of human right he's talking about. A right that will benefit Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. A right that will benefit the African continent for the rest of the African leaders or some African leader to see the reality and say, no, we're going this direction. That is the human right violation James P. McGovern is talking about. This man hate Africa. This man hate Africa and hate African people. This man hate the people of Burkina Faso. This James P. McGovern hate the people of Mali. He hate the people of Burkina Faso. He hate the people of Africa. He hate the African continent. James P. McGovern hate Africans.
Let me tell you what Ibrahim Traoré is doing. He has got agricultural projects. Burkina Faso is having a farming boom right now because of this great African leader. He has just made a law that any woman who has a child, her medical bills are completely eliminated. It's free to go to the doctor and have a child in Burkina Faso, in this African country, because mothers and maternal care is so important.
Donald Trump, look at this man. Try to be like him. Don't be like Zelensky. Don't be a worm. Be a president like Ibrahim Traoré.
A shocking scene unfolded in New York. Protesters chanted the name of an African military leader, Ibrahim Traoré, as they marched against Trump. Why him? Why now? And what does this say about the future of global resistance? What started as a single name on a cardboard sign soon became a full-blown political phenomenon. In less than 48 hours, Traoré was no longer just a name known to Burkina Faso or Sahel observers. It was echoing through the streets of the world's most powerful country. But this wasn't random, and it wasn't hype. It was a cry from people who were starved of something real, authentic leadership. Ibrahim Traoré's rise to icon status in the US didn't happen because Americans suddenly became interested in West African politics. It happened because they saw something in him that they no longer saw in their leaders: moral clarity. In a time when trust in government is eroding fast, when politicians on both sides of the aisle seem more interested in power than principle, Traoré stood out, not because he pandered, but because he didn't. When he took over as president in 2022, Traoré didn't give flowery speeches or beg for applause. He declared war on dependency, both military and economic. He expelled French forces, refused IMF conditionalities, built homegrown food and transportation systems, and refused to be treated like a charity case by the West. These weren't just policy decisions. They were acts of defiance, symbolic ruptures from the post-colonial script the West had forced African nations to follow. But Americans didn't just see defiance. They saw a blueprint, a way out of their spiral of apathy, corruption, and disillusionment. Because for Black Americans in particular, the image of a young African leader standing against empires felt like reclamation. For decades, they had been fed two ideas: that Africa was a place of suffering, and that leadership required compromise. But Traoré shattered both. He showed the world that a Black man in power could be strategic, militant, honest, and wildly popular without Western approval. That's when the first videos started going viral. A short clip of Traoré in his fatigues, calmly telling journalists, "We are not here to beg for survival. We are here to reclaim our dignity," hit TikTok like a grenade. Black creators stitched it with scenes of US protests, police brutality, food insecurity, and gentrification. The message was clear. He may be in Africa, but he's speaking for us. Soon after, digital artists began designing posters with his face superimposed on civil rights murals. He became a proxy for the conversation no one dared to have out loud. What if true leadership only exists outside the system? What made it even more powerful was that Traoré hadn't done a single interview with American media. He hadn't tried to win over the Western audience. That silence, that lack of PR polishing, made him even more compelling. In a world of political theater, he felt raw, untouched by the marketing machines. And that rawness was magnetic. There's another reason he struck such a nerve. Traore's age, mid-30s, made him feel like one of the people. Not a career politician, not a billionaire, not a lifeless bureaucrat, just a young soldier-turned-leader who sounded like the streets he came from. And in the eyes of the protesters, that authenticity transcended borders. It wasn't about Burkina Faso anymore. It was about a feeling that something had been taken from people around the world. A voice, a future, a sense of control. And that somehow, this man dared to take it back. And in doing so, he became more than a president. He became a mirror, a symbol of what leadership looks like when it grows from struggle, not privilege. So when American protesters started chanting his name, they weren't admiring a foreign leader from afar. They were calling for a different kind of power, one that doesn't bow, doesn't beg, and doesn't break. But what took this movement from admiration to action was what came next. The slogans, the chants, the street visuals that flooded America's biggest cities. That's where we go next. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. It started quietly. Just a few posters held high, drawn in thick markers by college students and community organizers. But within days, the name Traoré was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. Across Los Angeles, a group of young activists formed a human chain outside the federal building, holding signs that read, "Burkina Faso rises while America sleeps. Traoré said number, so should we." In Atlanta, where the weight of civil rights history still hangs in the air, marchers carried massive banners with a hand-painted portrait of Traoré, his military beret, his intense eyes, his unshakable calm. Beneath it were 3 words, "We remember Sankara." But it wasn't just his image, it was the emotion behind it. His defiance had become the people's defiance. And in the protests raging against Trump's immigration bans, rising police violence, and the deepening racial wealth divide, Traoré had been cast, not by himself, but by the people, as a vessel for rebellion. The crowd roared, "Hands off Traoré, hands off Africa." It wasn't performative, it was prophetic. Soon, art collectives began designing high-resolution stencils of Traoré's silhouette, spray-painted in bold black across the walls of Harlem, Oakland, and even Miami. His face began to appear on stickers slapped across subway trains, benches, and traffic poles, next to slogans like, "Build like Traoré." "The revolution wears a beret. This is what dignity looks like." And then came the slogans that cut deepest, those aimed not just at celebrating Traoré, but shaming the American political elite. Trump fears what Traoré represents. Even the digital space wasn't spared. TikTok edits set to protest anthems began circulating, juxtaposing Traoré's speeches with clips of American poverty, housing injustice, and brutal police crackdowns. By this point, Traoré's image had broken through the cultural firewall. It wasn't just activists and students anymore. Celebrities began retweeting his quotes. But what truly shook the establishment wasn't the volume, it was the depth. These weren't surface-level gestures. They were a cry for a new standard, a demand for leadership that looked, sounded, and fought for the people. The slogans weren't romantic. They were strategic. The streets weren't just expressing grief. They were expressing
All right. So I'm not going to play the entire video, but this is what I'm going to say about this video to James P. McGovern, who said what his name is. This is the man that you say he's violating human rights, right? Now, we already outlined what James P. McGovern means when he said Burkina Faso or Abraham Traoré is committing human rights violation or whatsoever he called it. These are the things he means. Like we already outlined it. What he means when he said Abraham Traoré is violating human rights, right? Now, this is a man that worldwide, right? People look up to him. This man just been in power for a couple of years, what, like 4 years or 3 years. But the entire world see him as a role model of a leadership. But James P. McGovern, you've been in power since in the 1990s. Nobody know you. The only reason why I said people got to know you is because you spoke about a true leader. You spoke against a true leader. I don't want to say Ebao. You spoke against a true leader for the people. That's the only reason why people know you now. And that's the only reason why we are talking about you, not even in a good way, but in a very bad way. In a very bad way, to remind you of who Abraham Traore is. To remind you that you are a liar and you are playing a devilish game. And your devilish game will not work against Abraham Traore. That was the same devilish game you play against Gaddafi and your own unlike Gaddafi. You destroy Libya. You said you are fighting for human rights. Look at Libya today. Are the people in Libya, do they have human rights? Today, do Libya have human rights? You're not talking about what the American government did in Libya. Today, the Libyans are not receiving no right. You are not talking about what NATO did in Libya. Look at Libya. You call that human right? You hate African. Because if you love African, you will have fought for human rights in Libya, fought to bring the American government to book, fight to bring Obama to book, fight to bring Hillary Clinton to book, fight to bring NATO nation to book. But because you hate African, you will not do that. You hate African, you will go against African who are fighting for the progress of Africa. You will go against African who are fighting for the right things for Africans. You will go against those African leaders. You hate Africans. James P. McGovern, you hate African. You are so hateful. You are so demonic. You are so deadly. You are not a human being. You are a devil and you have no source in you. James P. McGovern, you have hate in you towards African. Your soul is dirty. Your soul is demonic. Your soul is dirty and unclean. You have unclean spirit. James P. McGovern, you have an unclean spirit in you. You have no heart. You have no source in you. Your source in you is dirty, is deadly, is demonic. You have no love in your heart for African. You are so hateful. What in your heart towards African is hate. So look at Abraham Traore. What he's going through with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. What he's going through fighting jihadi. The same jihadi that have been alleged, the same Traore that have been alleged that American taxpayer money are funding those people. The same Traore that he is fighting, the same Traore that have been alleged that the USAID for those people. It have been alleged that American taxpayer money go to those people. You really love Africans and you fighting for African right? Why can you go and tackle those allegations and bring those people to book? Then indeed we will know. Indeed, we will know. Because when terrorists are out in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, then we will know you love African. But for the man who is fighting the terrorists, you going against this man to say he's committing, oh, so your human beings are the terrorists. So the human being you are fighting for are the terrorists that you are fighting for. Because those are the terrorists that he violating, right? So those are the human beings James P. McGovern is fighting for. The terrorists. You are fighting for ISIS. You are fighting for Boko Haram. You are fighting for, you name them, the Arab Spring that NATO sponsor to destroy Libya. Those are your human beings that you are fighting for. You have no source in you, James P. McGovern. You have no source in you. You are devil. Your heart is evil towards African people.
A meme that's going around right now is really interesting and maybe some kind of government psyop. Like for For example, people are mocking them for building a tomato factory. Like, oh, wow, you're really going into the future with that one. But what you need to understand is that the United States has used the IMF and the World Bank to systematically prevent African countries from developing their food production sectors in particular. And this is so that they remain perpetually dependent on the United States for food imports. But yeah, if you live in a developed Western country, a tomato factory might not seem like a big deal, but this is literally an act of rebellion against the world's largest empire. Maybe it sounds silly to you, but that is the truth. And then I see people saying, oh, but 40% of their country is controlled by extremists, and you think their leader's doing a good job? Like, holy shit, you TikTok-brained morons, read a book. Those extremist groups did not seize all of that land under Traoré and the revolutionary government. Those extremist groups spilled over into Mali and Burkina Faso after the United States and NATO overthrew the government of Libya. And they were able to seize so much land because Burkina Faso had a very weak government that was controlled by the French. So you're mocking them for doing the best that they can in a horrific situation that was created by your government. Your government that also traps you in debt and makes you a cuck to the richest people in our society. Maybe instead of mocking them, you should take a page out of their book and learn to fight back. I think the Burkina Faso meme that's going around right now is really interesting and maybe some kind of government psyop. Like, for example, people are mocking them for building a tomato.
So, there's nothing Washington, D.C. will say, we believe them. Because they are known for lying. They lie about Gaddafi, they lie about Thomas Sankara, they lie about Amilcar Cabral, they lie about Malcolm X, they lie about Marco Garvey, they lie about Patrick Lumumba. The lists are there. Everything that I have said, they lie about these leaders. But everything they say about these leaders was not the truth. They lie about them. So there's nothing that we say about our leader this current time. And a good African leader, we believe them. If they want to speak about African leader, let them speak about Pombia. Let them speak about Tinubu. Let them speak about Farouk. The list are there. They are African leaders they need to speak about. We will be happy. We will even join them. Look, let me say this. Look, America, this is a different time period. You need to get away from that old colonial mindset that you think you just come and say rubbish about African leaders again and we just take it. You will say rubbish. Yes, our African leader may be doing some things that we don't like. Yes, but you will not speak any rubbish about African leader. We just take it. It's not going to happen again, especially when we know you are so biased. You are biased in your human rights advocacy. You are biased in everything that you do. What we expect you to speak about African leaders, you don't do it. They are bad African leaders. You have been called several times to speak about it. You don't do it because those African leaders protect your interests. You only speak against African leaders who do not protect your interests as you think. So we don't trust you. Look, there is nothing you will say about African leaders again. We believe you. It's not going to happen. That's the time period we're in now. And the sooner you realize that, the better it be for you. Let's watch the last video and we call it for a day anyway. So this African queen here, African mother, African sister, have a message for Washington, D.C. She have a message for the United States government. She have a message for the United States Congress. She have a message for James P. McGovern, the man who so hate African, the man who had hate in a heart towards African, and the man who had it so deadly towards African, the man who had it so demonic towards African, the man who does not have souls in him.
To his friends. Do you know James P. McGovern, or Jimmy to his friends? Well, Jimmy's a Democratic representative from Massachusetts in the U.S., co-chair of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission in the U.S. Congress. A man who presents himself as the moral guardian of Africa from his office in Washington. On August 12, he sent a letter to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, with big ears to draw up an indictment against the countries of the alliance of Sahel states, a 2-page text containing all the usual cliches. Authoritarian juntas, muzzled press, disappeared dissidents, allegations of communal massacres, war crimes, essays. You want some? There you go. When it's not the MEPs in Strasbourg breaking our balls with their lectures, it's the American politicians jumping in. If the concert is international, the score is always the same. Hello, my name is Natalie Yamb, and we are going to look together, point by point, at what McGovern's America Jimmy to his friends accuses us of, and the measures he orders the Trump administration to take against us. But first, subscribe, like, save, and share this broadcast so that as many people as possible can benefit from it. First point, compliance with restrictions related to coup d'etat. McGovern demands that American aid never fund the coup leaders of the Sahel. Very well. But aren't the biggest coup plotters in the world sitting in the White House, the Capitol, or in Langley, Virginia, or in 1953, the CIA overthrew the democratically elected Iranian Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, guilty of nationalizing his oil. In 1954, it was President Jacobo Arbenz of Guatemala who fell victim to a coup d'etat orchestrated by the CIA to protect the interests of the American United Fruit Company. In Congo in 1961, Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba was assassinated on the orders of the CIA. In Chile in 1973, President Salvador Allende died in the bombed presidential palace, replaced by Pinochet's dictatorship with documented support from the CIA. The Maidan coup in Ukraine in 2014, with the overthrow of Viktor Yanukovych, is a coup in which Washington was directly involved. The invasion of Iraq in 2003, which led to the fall and subsequent execution of Saddam Hussein, is an American coup. Just like the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in 2011, killed savagely under the cover of a NATO operation led by Washington, which precisely led to the destabilization of the Sahel that seems to concern him so much. The kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela on January 3 is a coup committed in broad daylight by Washington. The assassination of Ali Khamenei in Iran in February 2026, what is that if not a coup? They want to teach us constitutional virtue, coming from the country that has orchestrated, supported, and executed coups on virtually every continent over the last decade. The nerve of that, Jimmy. Oh, by the way, if you know of other American-backed coups that I haven't mentioned, put them in the comments and I might do an episode on them. Second point. Jimmy says we must sanction people who violate human rights. Very well. Let's set aside the flexible definition of human rights and sanction the executioners as Jimmy wishes. But why does Washington never sanction its own allies? Saudi Arabia, which literally chopped journalist Jamal Khashoggi into small pieces in its consulate in Turkey, remains the top client for American arms. Israel, whose army is accused by the United Nations and the ICC of war crimes in Palestine, continues to receive billions of dollars in American military aid every year without the slightest sanction. The terrorist Mohammed al-Jolani, who became a leader in Syria as al-Shara, whose men massacre Christians, Alawites, and Druze in his country, was received with honors by Donald Trump, who even found him a good-looking guy. Jimmy, what is this selective application of the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act? This 2016 American law allows them to place everyone the Americans don't like under OFAC sanctions and destroy their lives, just as the European Union is seeking to destroy mine with these sanctions they are going to renew in the coming days. Third point ties to the Wagner Group. Jimmy McGovern is outraged that Malian officers linked to Russian mercenaries had their sanctions lifted in February by the American government. I would remind you that among them was the late General Sadio Camara, who was the victim, along with his family, of a terrorist truck bombing in Bamako. May he rest in peace. But who invented mercenarism? Perhaps I'll be teaching you something, but its origins are Western. It dates back to ancient Greece 2,600 years ago, where the use of paid foreign fighters called Mistophoroi or Xenos was a common practice as conflicts intensified, first between Greeks, city-states, then against the Persians, and then during the wars that followed the death of Alexander the Great. Later, the British and French empires perfected the business of mercenarism with the creation of the British Gurkhas in 1815 and the French Foreign Legion in 1831. Who invented the privatization of modern warfare? Well, the United States with Blackwater in Iraq, that same private company whose employees massacred 17 Iraqi civilians in Nisour Square in 2007 without any high-ranking American official ever having to pay the political price.
All interviewed witnesses say the bullets were fired by guards from Blackwater USA, a private security firm in Iraq and Iraq. They also say the guards fired without provocation and that the shooting continued while the victims were fleeing for their lives. The Iraqi government supports their claim and calls it deliberate murder. A U.S. report described the shooting, I quote, as a criminal act.
Wasn't it Wagner that shared the Western camp in Libya in 2019 alongside Haftar, the CIA man par excellence? Well, Wagner causes a scandal in Bamako, but Blackwater in Baghdad, or the Foreign Legion in Bunti, Mali, or Wagner in Benghazi is just fine by Washington. Jimmy's Jeremiads are all the more irrelevant since Wagner has not existed since August 2023, and Africa Corps, whose members are integrated into the Russian army, just as the Foreign Legion is integrated into the French army, cannot be labeled as mercenaries under international humanitarian law, specifically Article 47 of Additional Protocol Worst to the 1977 Geneva Conventions, which explicitly excludes foreign volunteers integrated into a state's regular armed forces from mercenary status. So it's simple, either everyone is a mercenary or no one is. Fourth point, the Elie Wiesel Act and the prevention of atrocities. This is perhaps the most cynical of all. This law, signed in 2019 by Donald Trump, who has been bombing everywhere since returning to power in 2025, bears the name of a Holocaust survivor and is supposed to prevent such a crime from happening again. But where were the United States in 1994 during the 100 days of the Rwandan genocide, when the Clinton administration even refused to use the word genocide to avoid having to intervene? Where are the United States today in Yemen, where their bombs sold to the Saudi coalition wiped markets, schools, and hospitals off the map for years? Did Jimmy invoke the Elie Wiesel Act when the U.S. military bombed a school in Manama, Iraq, killing 168 people, mostly young girls, in February 2026? Isn't it the United States that is practicing a genocidal blockade on Cuba, contributing to a dramatic rise in infant mortality on the island? To talk about Gaza or the DRC, Jimmy, really? Fifth point, the release of political prisoners. Jimmy demands the release of Mohamed Bazoum, his wife, and other figures detained in the Sahel. So he casts his eyes all the way to Niamey, but he doesn't see Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores, who are being held in cramped cells in New York City, while Bazoum continues to be housed in the presidential palace in Niamey, and his wife remains with him voluntarily. We already told her to leave. She says, no, I'm staying with my guy. Are we really going to come and get caught in the middle of it? The overthrow of Bazoum is an internal Nigerian affair. The kidnapping of Maduro is international grand banditry. Hey, what about Guantanamo? Secret CIA prisons in Poland, Romania, Thailand, just about everywhere in the world, where men were detained and tortured for 10, 15, 20 years without trial. And he dares to lecture Niger, Mali, and Burkina. Jimmy, point number 6. Inclusive peace processes. Jimmy wants us to talk to terrorists and involve civil society in these negotiations. Nothing less than that. But America itself, why didn't it sit down with its own creation, Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, to talk after September 11, 2001? Why doesn't it urge Israel to sit down and talk with Hezbollah or Hamas, which it considers to be armed terrorist groups? America and Israel have the right to defend themselves, but not Niger, Mali, and Burkina. Jimmy, when we summoned the American ambassador in Niamey, Bamako, or Ouagadougou, just as Burkina summoned the European Union representative, and then broke off diplomatic relations with France after similar arguments from your French MEP colleague, Christophe Gomard, don't come crying. Don't come crying then. And finally, the 7th point, humanitarian aid. McGovern is asking to increase humanitarian and development aid to dry up extremist recruitment. Very well. But we aren't asking for humanitarian aid or official development assistance, which mainly helps and develops the pockets of donors and the ruling caste in recipient countries while leaving most of the population in misery year after year, year after year. Thank you. We have our resources, our human capital, and our intelligence, and we will manage with them. To conclude, after reviewing these 7 injunctions, I want to tell Jimmy that if the AES authorities have accounts to settle regarding human rights or governance, they owe them to their own people. It is an African debate that will be settled between Africans with our own mechanisms, our own schedule, and in full sovereignty. But it is not a parliamentarian in Washington who has himself been squatting in his congressional seat for 30 years on behalf of a country that has itself manufactured coups, financed dictators, bombed civilians, detained innocent people without trial, and dismantled its own humanitarian aid, who is going to come and demand accountability from General Abdourahmane Tiani or General Assimi Goïta. State or to Captain Ibrahim Traoré? No. What Jimmy McGovern is doing isn't defending human rights, it's interference, disguised as virtue. The alliance of Sahel states needs no lessons from Brussels, nor from Paris or Washington. It needs these same capitals to stop funding the terrorist mercenaries that are bleeding their countries dry and hindering their prosperity by forcing them to direct a large portion of their national budgets toward defense and security to the detriment of agriculture, social services, and the economy, and for them to finally be allowed to decide for themselves what is best for them. I hope we understand each other. Jimmy. Peace out. And And don't forget to stay hydrated. I recommend apple juice with niamaku. Ooh. The taste of that. Do you have that at home, Jimmy?
All right, Jimmy. The hateful Jimmy. Jimmy the demon. Yeah, your new name. I call him McGovern. James P. McGovern the demon. You take trouble. James P. McGovern, the hateful congressman. James P. McGovern, the demonic congressman of the United States. James P. McGovern, the congressman who don't have souls in him. James P. McGovern, the congressman who hates African people. James P. McGovern, the congressman who don't want to see Africa rise. James P. McGovern, the U.S. congressman who is very demonic when it comes to African, who is very hateful when it comes to African. James P. McGovern, the man who does not have souls in him. James P. McGovern. McGovern? How you call his name? McGovern. Well, I don't think you can govern well. I don't know how you got that name. But that name does not even sound like African to fight for African. McGovern. That name does not even sound like African to fight for African. James P. McGovern. Be truthful to yourself. Tell African people that you hate good leaders from Africa. Then we will understand. James P. McGovern, the congressman of the U.S. Tell African people that you love you love bad African leaders. That those are the people you love. We will understand. James P. McGovern, did you get the message our sister gave you? James P. McGovern. Nobody knew you until you put your mouth on Abraham Traore, our great leader, our great king, the three kings of Africa, the three best leaders of Africa as we speak currently, the three best leaders of the entire world, of the entire globe as we speak currently, the three best charismatic and smart, everything, all the adjective, use all the adjective to describe them. Good, not a bad adjective. Because a bad adjective will be used to describe you, James P. McGovern. I don't even care how I pronounce your name right. Mark. James P. McGovern, how do you pronounce your name? Mark. McGovern. McGovern. What do you govern? What do you govern? James P. McGovern. What do you govern? James P. McGovern. The man who hates Africans. James P. McGovern. The demon. James P. McGovern. The demonic congressman. James P. McGovern. The demonic congressman. James P. McGovern. You're in trouble. You wanted to be known. Now you're known. You wanted to be famous. Now you're famous. James P. McGovern. Anytime Africans, you hear a name McGovern, he's related to James P. McGovern or she's related to James P. McGovern. That person is unwanted on the African continent because that person that person might be sent by James P. McGovern for bad thing on the African continent. Because that name, James P. McGovern, is a name that does not love African people. James P. McGovern. James P. McGovern. Yeah, that's his name right there. James P. McGovern. Go and govern the U.S. with all the corruption in the U.S. With all the corruption in Washington, D.C. Go and govern them. James P. McGovern. The demonic congressman, James P. McGovern. The hateful congressman who hates African people. James P. McGovern hates Africans. James P. McGovern. James P. McGovern is trying to unalive another great African leader, James P. McGovern. James P. McGovern, the same way they unalive Gaddafi, James P. McGovern want to unalive Abraham Traoré, Tiani, and Keita. James P. McGovern. Currently, James P. McGovern is lobbying to unalive Abraham Traoré. James P. McGovern. That's why he said Abraham Traoré have committed human rights violation. When there's no evidence, James P. McGovern. James P. McGovern is telling us the people he is fighting for are the terrorists that Abraham Traoré is fighting. Those terrorists that are unaliving and harassing, intimidating Burkinabés. Those are the people James P. McGovern, the United States congressman, lawyer man, is fighting for. James P. McGovern hates Africans. James P. McGovern, he hates the African continent. James P. McGovern is advocating for the assassination of Abraham Traoré by saying Abraham Traoré is committing heinous crime against human rights. Who are the human beings he's talking about? Who are the human beings James P. McGovern is talking about? This man is so hateful. He hates Africans. James P. McGovern. That ends the story. He wanted to be famous. Now he's famous.
The white power structure, because that's all we have in America. And the white power structure today is just as much interested in perpetuating slavery as the white power structure was 100 years ago. Only now they use modern methods of doing so. And realizing that the black people in this country are waking up and becoming filled with a desire to be looked upon as men and as human beings. The white power structure, to slow down that struggle for freedom and human dignity, uses tricks. 100 years ago they could do it with chains. Today they use tricks. And one of the tricks that they've invented is this token integration. To get Negroes, so-called Negro leaders, to accept a few token crumbs of integration that don't solve any problem for the masses of black people in this country whatsoever, but it does make the hand-picked Negroes be satisfied to slow down the cry of the masses. And a good example of that is as soon as the spirit of rebellion